Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Abby and I like to talk about spooky things. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 39 terrifying TikToks from Appalachia. Real quick before we get started, we have had a bunch of crazy heavy storms here in the Chicago area the past couple weeks, and unfortunately one of my friend's houses flooded on 4th of July. So instead of celebrating America 250, she was dealing with losing her home, her childhood home that she grew up in. She lives there with her dad, her fiance, and her brother. And she is obviously absolutely devastated by this. She also lost her car to this flood. It was a crazy flash flood. I mean, it just came absolutely out of nowhere. And now they essentially have to redo the entire interior of the house because it was flooded. They need to get rid of their furniture, get new furniture. And obviously you can imagine how crazy expensive and difficult that is to have to deal with. She created a GoFundMe to help with the cost of rebuilding and repurchasing all the necessities that were destroyed by this flood. I mean, it is absolutely mind-boggling how the waters were able to just randomly get so high so quickly and destroy so much. So like I said, she has a GoFundMe that she set up that I wanted to share with you guys because she is genuinely one of the kindest people I've ever met. I've known her since high school, my freshman year. She's just so kind, such a loving person, so supportive, so caring. I'm saving up to her wedding in December. She's one of my good friends. She is such a special human being, and it is absolutely devastating that out of everyone, like no one should have to deal with this, but out of everyone it should not have happened to her. She is so kind. And I wish that there was so much more I could do to help. So I want to be able to share with you guys this GoFundMe. If you are able to, please consider donating. If you can't donate, totally understandable. Please consider sharing the link on Facebook, Instagram, whatever other social platforms you have. I will have the link down below in the description, the very first line. Again, she is like one of the kindest people you will ever meet, and it is absolutely devastating that she has to deal with this. So please, if you can, consider donating. Anything helps. And like I said, if not, please consider sharing on any platforms you have. I'm really hoping that we can reach her goal and she is able to rebuild this house. Like I said, she's lived there her entire life. And anything you guys can do absolutely helps. So thank you so much in advance. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post Sundays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. Without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Our first TikTok's by the user, the.cryptid.ranch.
My sister and I own a cryptid-themed Airbnb here in the Appalachian Mountains. We've asked our guests to submit or write in the guest book spooky stories that have happened to them or things that they've experienced while in the Appalachian Mountains. We wanted to share those stories with you. However, tonight I'm going to tell one of my own stories. So let's set the scene. I was in high school. I think we were on holiday break because I don't remember having to get up to go to school. It was hunting season. My dad would always get up at like 3 or 4 a.m., get up, get ready to go in the woods. It was not uncommon for me to wake up while he was getting ready because Dad didn't care if he woke up anyone else in the house whenever he would get up to go hunting. All his thoughts were on was getting in the woods. So I always slept with my bedroom door closed. I always slept with a fan in the window at night. Didn't matter if it was in the middle of winter because I would always hear footsteps in my room, and I didn't like that. So with the fan on, I couldn't hear those. Anytime that Dad would get up to go hunting, he would turn all the lights in the house on. So there would always be a glow around the outside edge of my door, which woke me up. That morning, I got up to go to the bathroom. I remember looking as I went to the bathroom at the table and saw Dad sitting at the table eating his oatmeal, getting ready for the day. I think he even looked at me. We didn't say anything because I was tired and going back to bed. Went to the bathroom, came back to bed, shut my door, got back in bed, was trying to fall asleep, and all of a sudden I felt something at the end of my bed. It was almost like if someone were to climb or sit on the end of your bed. But obviously no one was in my room. My door didn't open. It was just me in there. And I thought, okay, I'll just ignore that, whatever. Like I thought maybe I moved and shook my bed. I don't know. Always try to have an explanation for things until I can't. it did that a couple times, and it even got heavier. Like someone was definitely sitting on my bed. And so I laid perfectly still. I did not move. But at that time, I still slept with my feet outside of the blanket. And I remember something extremely forceful literally grabbed my foot. It hurt so bad. And I don't know how to explain it. It didn't feel like a person grabbed my foot, but something had a hold of my foot. And I jerked it out of its reach, or whatever it was. I jerked it out, and I hurried up, and I put the blanket, like, looped it under my feet. And I've never slept with my feet out of the blanket since then. But I was so terrified. I put the blankets over my head, because that's going to protect me. And I lay there as quiet as possible. I was so scared. I was sweating. And we have wood paneling in this house. So I had a metal headboard that was pushed up against the wall. And all of a sudden, it sounds like somebody takes something metal and literally goes like this on the paneling right above my head where my headboard was. So you can't easily access the wall, especially not to do this. I was so scared. I wanted to jump up out of bed, but I just shut my eyes really tight and I waited. And I listened because I was like, there was no way that Dad came in. No one came in my room. It was just me. So I waited a few minutes until I worked up enough courage to jump out of bed. And I jumped up out of bed and I opened my door to go tell Dad or to ask him if he came in my room or whatever, even though I knew he didn't. He was not in there. The lights were not on. And I thought, there's no way he left that fast. And I remember creeping to my parents' room and he was sound asleep in bed. But he didn't get up. He was not up at all that night. I don't know how to explain that. I was definitely wide awake. And the next morning, whenever I woke up, there was a bruise on my big toe. I have no explanation for that. That was the only time that it happened like that. I mean, there were other things that happened, but that's like a core memory for me. And I was so afraid to sleep in my room for months after that.
I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, one of my biggest fears was sticking my feet out from under the covers and something grabbing them. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I was such a baby when I was a kid that sometimes I would have my mom rub my back as I was falling asleep because I was so scared of something like this happening. I was so scared of there being some demon or ghost or creature in my room messing with me as I was trying to fall asleep or as I was sleeping. And so I needed my mom to literally rub my back so I could fall asleep and be in the clear from whatever things were trying to get me. Thankfully, I've outgrown that, but I'm not gonna lie, every once in a while I'll stick my foot out from the cover and I'm like, not right now, it doesn't feel right now, I'm a little nervous. I can't imagine having that actually happen to you because the fear of it happening is already pretty terrifying, but having it actually happen is a whole nother ballgame. Our next TikTok's with user Ophelia Omega.
Here in the Appalachian Mountains of southern West Virginia in about the 1980s, my mom...
Alright, so if we're going to tell tales old folks told, my mom told me the story about my papa. She said that when he was coming down Balsam Mountain Road in Balsam, North Carolina, which is a very remote place. And if you know anything about Western North Carolina, you know how remote it can get. Well, they lived in a place called Dark Ridge in Balsam, North Carolina, which is now a neighborhood outside of Silva, which is about half an hour outside of Asheville to the west. So very remote, very much in the mountains. And it was way back in the day, so this is very rural. Okay, now that we've got the setting covered, my papa is driving his old pickup truck down this back mountain road. It's Balsam Mountain Road, and he is minding his own, and suddenly this apparition pops into his seat, and he is a white devil. I mean, shock white, like white paint, titanium white, and he's got hair that stands straight up and electric blue eyes, and he looks like he's got electricity coming off of him, and he's got sharp teeth, and he is just cackling and screaming and cackling at my papa. Now, Papa, I guess, had some stones, because there wasn't any place to pull over, so he rides down the mountain with this apparition cackling and screaming at him when I would have kicked that door open. Been like, oh no. But he rides down the mountain with this thing, and as he crosses the railroad tracks and the creek, it disappears. Grandma said he came home shaking, that he was white as a sheet. Now, my papa was 6'4" and wasn't scared of nothing and fought in World War II. So he was not the type of man that was going to be worried about anything on that mountain. except this.
Listen, I've almost crashed my car before because there was a spider on my ceiling. I would definitely crash my car if there was some like devil creature sitting next to me as I'm driving in the middle of the night. The fact that that man was able to keep his composure to get home is mind-boggling to me. I mean, that is some serious willpower right there. Our next TikToks with user, dustinleefrazier.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so basically, it all started whenever I was younger, like, I don't know, I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9, and I remember having these really, like, horrific, like, nightmares or, like, night terrors, and my parents said that multiple times I had, like, woken up in the middle of the night, or they had woken up to me walking around in circles, of, like, around the coffee table, just, like, scream. Please tell me y'all heard that. Hello?
While this is a very fascinating video, I have been informed in past videos where I featured his TikToks that his posts are for entertainment purposes only. I'm not sure if he like wants the general public to know that, but there are people that have said like, yes, this is definitely for entertainment purposes. And I'm not gonna lie, with how many encounters he has and how many crazy videos are so similar, I have a feeling that that is the case. But he is entertaining to watch nonetheless. Our next TikToks by the user, awakenedtarotpod.
So my aunt and uncle had 2 small children who lived upstairs, and that's important to this story because it was Halloween night. I went to sleep. In this basement, I had never felt afraid, and I'd never had any adverse feelings or felt like I was being watched in this basement. Halloween night, I turn off my light, I get into bed, and this time I'm sleeping on the opposite side of like a king bed, and there's like all of this space over here. And I can't move. Immediate again. It wasn't like I had waited or had fallen asleep. It was once again very immediate. And I was laying down and I heard this walking coming down the stairs. And I was like, maybe it's one of my cousins. Maybe it's one of my cousins, but I couldn't move. There was nothing I could do. Once again, I'm squeezing my eyes shut and what I thought was maybe, hopefully, one of my cousins came over to the bed and they jumped into the bed with me and like wiggled. I could feel them wiggling next to me. I could feel their body weight in the bed. They snuggled there. It wasn't as long this time. It was more like maybe like 2 to 3 minutes. And then I felt them jump up. I immediately had the ability to move again. So I sat straight up and then swung my arm at it, thinking that if it was one of my cousins, I would have grabbed them. There was nothing there. So I went up and I told my family the next day and I was like, you guys, like this weird thing happened. It was just like what happened at Nana and Papa's, and they were laughing it off. I'm like, no, it's fine. Years later, years and years later, I'm now an adult with my own child. And my family's like, that house was haunted as fuck. And they were telling me all of the voices that they would hear and all of the things they would see walking in front of their windows. And my aunt was telling me about all the time she would clean my Nana and Papa's basement before I lived there. And she would like, something once like smacked her. And I was like, guys. But yeah, so Appalachia is no joke. You got to be careful with that. You got to be careful out there.
If anything, these stories are just confirming that I had a right to be scared of something climbing into my bed as a child, because it seems like it's happening to everyone else. Thankfully, it never happened to me, but apparently I was right to be afraid of it happening. Our next TikTok's with user, Anna Mills XO23.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
This one's a good one. So we're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains visiting my grandparents. If you know anything about that mountain range. If you don't know, all you gotta do is search mimic. They'll come up. So speaking of mimics, my mom and I are visiting my grandparents, and my aunt and my cousin live with them as well. While we were staying there, we were staying in the basement, which is also where my aunt's room is, and then there's a bathroom. And then my grandparents' room and office is upstairs, and I think my cousin's is too. So I wake up, go to the bathroom, I'm walking past my aunt's room, and I see my grandpa, and I say, "Hi, Grandpa," wearing jeans and a flannel, like, looks completely normal. He doesn't say anything back to me, which doesn't surprise me because he's hard of hearing, so it wouldn't be shocking that I would say hi and he wouldn't say hi back. I go upstairs, and he walks in from the other side of the house. And I was like, were you downstairs earlier this morning? And he's like, no, not at all. I go back and forth with him a little bit because I'm like, maybe he went down there and he just doesn't remember. It literally got to the point where my mom was like, Anna, stop. He has not been down there. When I tell you I did not speak until we got literally all packed up out of the house. We were 45 minutes away in the car, and that's when I said, do you know if their house is haunted? So my mom had me call my aunt who lives there. She also sees ghosts like regularly. Talks to them like the whole nine. So if it was haunted, she would know. So I text her and I told her, like, is it haunted? She's like, well, what did you see? So I explained the whole thing to her. She sends me screenshots of my cousin's friend from like 4 months in, like, before this happened, sending her a detailed description of the exact ghost I saw wearing the same outfit. And okay, that scared the hell out of me because that was the most human ghost that I've ever seen in my life. Like, it had feet. It had clothes. Like, it looked like a person. And it wasn't until I got on this lovely app that I learned about mimics, and it, like, that's what I feel like it probably was. It also makes me wonder though, like, okay, so if you become a ghost, can you choose an outfit and then are you in that outfit forever? Or can you change outfits? Because why was he wearing a flannel? And jeans. Like, jeans is the selection for your eternal outfit. That I wouldn't do that.
So what do we think this is? Do we think it's like a mimic? I mean, it didn't really do much. It's not like it interacted with her. It just existed and walked away and ignored her. You'd think a mimic would be like trying to kind of get her attention more and trying to interact back with her. But it's so freaky that she like saw him, but it wasn't actually him. And he's like, no, I was not there. Definitely some kind of paranormal event, but I don't know exactly what to classify it as. Our next TikTok's with the user, Appalachian Mama 3.
People love stories about Appalachia, scary stories at that. Well, let me tell you, I thought it was funny, but everybody around me was super scared. So the house that I stayed in as a kid, my grandparents' house, there was a ghost, but a friendly ghost. We would do things like move cups around and just kind of make sure that we knew that she was there. So we all knew that she wore a brown shirt and a skirt, right? She was a nice ghost. We all got along with her, but the like great room, you could tell she stayed there where the steps were. Like when you went in that room, you ran up the steps because you could just feel her so strong, bro. After my grandma died, but before I get kicked out of the house, you're only talking about maybe 9 months worth of time. Well, I'm your typical teenager, and it's prom night. Now, I didn't get to go to the prom because I didn't have a dress. I decided I'm going to have a prom party. Everybody comes to the house. Everyone's drinking, and I have this one friend, and she just couldn't handle her booze. So Me and her cousin, God rest his soul, we were like, oh my God, let's just take her upstairs to my bedroom. So we take her upstairs to the bedroom, and I take a garbage can up there because she proceeds to start throwing up. Mind you, I'm used to this ghost. You know, my grandmother was my absolute world, okay, and everyone knew that. I had told no one about the ghost in our house, no one, but no one liked that great room. Nobody. They hated that room because I'm telling you, you could just feel something was there. So let's just call this friend Sally. Sally, when we get her upstairs, proceeds to start absolutely crying her eyes out. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm ruining the party. You know how they do. And she's like, I'm so sick. And I'm like, okay, let me go downstairs and get you a cold rag. I'll be right back. Little old me gets distracted. ADD, obviously. So finally I remember, oh, he's upstairs. Sally's upstairs. Well, here I go into the great room to go upstairs. Who do I see? Sally. Sitting at the top of the steps. What does she have in her hand? A rag. A cold rag. With the garbage can between her legs. The top of the steps. There she sits. I immediately already know. I go up the steps and I sit beside of her and I'm like, Sally, did you come down the steps? No. I said, did you go to the bathroom? No. She said, your grandma, she brought me this cold rag and she helped me. Immediately I'm offended at first. Because my grandma hadn't been dead long. I'm like, what? He said, your granny was so pretty in her brown shirt and her long skirt. She was so sweet. She held my hair back and brought me a cold rag. She helped me sit down right here. Yeah, got scared sober. I don't want to tell anybody. Well, I pick her up, take her back to my bedroom, and I'm standing there at the top of the steps. I'm looking down, and I'm like, leave my friends alone. I mean, I appreciate, chick, what you're trying to do, but can you please leave my friends alone? Needless to say, I left Sally, call me a bad friend, upstairs all night long. The party eventually got busted up. That was a wild one for the books. The next morning, I had the decency to tell her, because she remembered vividly. I said, that wasn't my granny. That was a ghost. She was totally freaked out. And I don't think she ever come back to my house. It could have been because, you know, I had to leave too, not long after that.
I think that's just so sweet. Like, she kind of forgot about her friend as she's like throwing up and sick, but the ghost of her grandmother came to take care of her so she wouldn't be alone. Our next TikToks with user, AppalachianBluebird.
A lot of people have asked me if Appalachia is really that scary. I'm going to tell you a few things that have happened to me personally. This is the house that my grandma grew up in, and this is what it used to look like when she lived there. Now that it's been abandoned for several years, it looks like this. Now this house is, I'm not kidding you, more than a mile up a dirt road on the top of a mountain. There's only one family that still lives on that whole mountain. And we've been up there quite a few times, but this was the very last time we've been up there. We were taking my grandma to see it and we had like 10 people with us. But there was a fork in the road and we couldn't figure out which way to go. So they had the bright idea to send me to go look. So I had to go quite a ways down this dirt path. And I was far away from the car and the other people by the time that I saw the house. And the screen door that's like right here just screeched open. And it scared me to death. That alone could have been anything. But a couple years before, I had got the bright idea to go up this mountain by myself. No one would go with me, and I didn't think I could make it up there in my car. So I was like, well, I'll just park at the bottom of the mountain and I'll walk this whole over a mile trek up this dirt path through the woods by myself. Well, the night before I was planning to go, I had a really scary dream. So from that house that I showed you, there's this long dirt path that leads to where the barns were at. And then you have to go up a hill and here's the cemetery. In the dream I had, I was like down here, like looking up, walking up here so I could get into the cemetery. In my dream, this woman comes out of the woods, right out of the tree line, and she's just covered in black. She's got this like black veil on and this old, maybe like 1800s dress, and she just walks out of the trees and just like points like this with her veil. But I thought nothing of it really, and I went anyway. On my way there, I got in a car wreck. I just feel like something did not want me going up there. I ended up not going since I got in that wreck. It wasn't a bad wreck, but it was crazy. Maybe something worse would have happened to me if I'd went up there by myself. Who knows? The woman in my dream looked like the woman in the yard. You know what I'm talking about? That new movie that just came out?
Okay, if someone tried to send me up a crossroads to go find a decrepit house, I would be telling them that they need to be doing that. That's not me. There is no way I'm going to be walking around the Appalachian Mountains, wandering around by myself to look for an abandoned, falling apart house. That is crazy. And as soon as I saw that screen door swing open, I absolutely would have booked it out of there. Our next 5 TikToks are by the user Autumn in Appalachia. I featured her in my last Appalachian terrifying TikToks video, and you guys loved her, and I absolutely love her stories, so I had to include her again.
Okay, so I was not planning on doing another story time tonight because I'm still trying to get over being sick, and my voice is just kind of giving Miley Cyrus's hit cousin, but we're gonna do it anyway because I got to talking with my mom tonight, and she shared some stories. She sent me videos, and she shared some stories and reminded me of some things that happened when I was growing up in Tennessee. And the last 2 stories in particular that she, told me, one, I'm going to have to save for another day, because just to be honest, it like put a pit in my stomach in the same way that like the story that I first shared, my very first spooky story where I told y'all about how my boyfriend saw me sitting on the bed, but it wasn't me. It was another thing like that looked like me. So it's like that kind of vibe, and it makes me feel sick at my stomach. Because these are not just spooky stories. These are real things. Like, these are things that have happened in my life. So I'm going to save that one for maybe another day this week. But the one I'm sharing tonight is equally as freaky, but just in a different type of way. Okay, now this story happened when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I have to give you guys some preface on this, because if I don't, you're going to be like, what the hell, Haley? Like, you need to understand. So the property that I grew up at in Tennessee, my mama and papa had lived on that property for years until my papa passed away. When my papa passed away, my mama, she stayed there for a while, but eventually sold the house. When she sold the house, my family bought it, my mom and my dad, and then we moved in there. Now, before my mama moved out of that place, when my papa passed away, she was insistent on having my papa buried on that property. She wanted him close. That was her way of coping with that grief. And it was a big property. They owned it. She had him initially buried on the edge of the wood line in the backyard, like up close to where my papa's woodshed was. And we eventually, after we moved in, had him move to like a cemetery and everything. My mama was like okay with that, so we did. But when we first moved in there, my papa was still buried there. So that's the preface, because this story took place at my papa's grave at my house in Tennessee. So as I said, I'm 5 or 6 years old, and I remember this. So on this day, I'm outside and I had picked some wildflowers for my papa's grave. I would always pick him wildflowers and take them to his grave and sing him a song, and that's what I was doing this day. My mom was doing dishes, and she was watching me out the kitchen window. Out the kitchen window, you see the backyard all the way up to the wood line where my papa's buried. So she's watching me. It's a sad thing. Like I'm grieving, my papa, and so as she is standing there, it's kind of just like this little bittersweet thing. She all of a sudden gets a really eerie, icky vibe, like something is wrong. And at the same time, now I'll tell you her perspective, and then I will backtrack and tell you mine, because they were synchronized experiences, even though we are an entire yard apart, okay? And I'm really young. So she gets this super creepy feeling, and at the same time, she watches me stand up. Now, she has the kitchen window open, so she can hear to an extent, and she hears me scream really loud. And I had, when I first stood up, I turned around and started looking up in the woods, and I didn't see what she saw somehow, but so I scream, and as I scream, she just knows. She said, Haley, run. So I start hightailing it down to the house. I run my little ass all the way to the front yard. I was not messing around. So to backtrack and kind of tell you what I experienced, okay? And I'm going to tell you what my mom saw. Super freaking creepy. I have no idea what it was. So I just remember I'm literally on my hands and knees by his grave. I have the flowers by his grave. All of a sudden, I felt this, I don't know, it was like a primal kind of fear, like when your adrenaline kicks in, kind of primal fear. Don't know why. I thought that I heard like leaves rustling or something. That's so common. I lived in the middle of the mountains. Leaves rustling normally wouldn't scare me, but I knew something was wrong. I felt like something was there, or like I was being watched or something. I don't know how to explain it. I just know that it scared me really bad. When I turned around and looked into the woodline, I didn't see anything. I was just frozen. I was like paralyzed for a minute. Didn't see anything. And then I hear my mom yell, Haley, run. And that's when I take off. Now my mom, after she said, Haley, run. So when my mom screams, Haley, run, she looks up. There's a huge oak tree in the edge of the woods right by the grave and my papa's woodshed. She sees she says like a figure, like a human figure, because we don't know if it was actually a man. I don't think that men are 7 feet tall very often. She said that it was in dark clothing, and she could clear as day make out an arm, and from the shoulders down, the whole body, like just like you're seeing me, like a whole body. Doesn't make sense why she could not see facial features, but she could not. The sun's out, like she can see the skin, the dark clothing, and she said that this thing had some sort of a staff or a pole, and she said it was like thick in diameter. It's not like a fishing pole. It's like, imagine like a piece of like PVC pipe or some shit. I don't know what else. So she said that it was like a silver color, glistening in the sun even, and it had it in its hand, like, like standing there like freaking Gandalf, I don't know, about 7 foot tall, and it like peers out from behind this oak tree. And so she thinks there is some sort of a man up there, and that he is like trying to hurt me or kidnap me or break into my papa's woodshed. Now, it's super creepy to have anybody on your property, but a property that remote, that's even scarier, because why are you all the way back there? And so she runs out onto the back porch. When she gets onto the back porch, she doesn't see it. And so she is looking, she's too scared to run up there. She's looking around, and then she starts thinking, like, this was so real. What if, there's this fishing pond that's like way back in the woods and stuff. What if, my dad, he was at this pond. What if his truck broke down and he like walked back through the woods or something like that, because it was quicker than taking the road. And so right about that time, my dad pulls in the driveway in his truck. Now she screams for him, and she said, "Jeff, there's somebody in the woods up here." So my dad takes off in that little pickup truck through the yard all the way up to the wood line. He gets up there, he jumps out, he's running around through the woods, looking in the shed, like there's nobody. There is not a trace of anybody. Now Mom said she saw this man, whatever, go back behind this big oak tree. He never came out from behind that oak tree. There is no way he could have walked away or without her seeing. You know what I mean? So we still don't know what it was. We never found out. So yeah, that's the story. I don't know what to make of it. I have very clear memories of it. One of my earlier childhood memories, and my mom, obviously remembers it. There were quite a few things that happened at that house in Tennessee, and we will have to share more about that house at a later time. Question: have you guys ever had a memory that is just so far back in the recesses of your mind that until somebody says something about this memory, it doesn't really trigger it and like all come flooding back? Because that's kind of the whole vibe of this spooky story. This did take place at my childhood home in the Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee. We lived way, way back in the woods, very remote area, very, small town, but it took us a good while to get to town even. Yeah, my mom reminded me around a week or two ago of this story, and when she said, like what happened, it just all kind of came flooding back, and it gave me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, because it is just one of those things that you never want your kid to wake you up in the middle of the night and tell you. I would be freaked out as a mom. So, and I do remember this. I do have, especially one night, a very vivid memory of this. So I had a very small bedroom, and there was a bathroom attached to it, and Mom said that there were a few times in my childhood where I would like scream for her in the middle of the night, and I would tell her there was a little girl singing in my bathroom, and it would freak her out. She would go and like check the room out and everything, and the bathroom, and never find anything, of course. But my sister and I, we shared a bedroom, and my sister would be in there, and she was asleep, so like she didn't ever hear it. And I had a little brother, but it was not him, and he was asleep in his bed when this would happen. And I can't remember how many times this happened, but there was one night in particular where I remember hearing her from my bed sing "Ring Around the Rosie," and the light was on in the bathroom, and it was so real. It kind of echoed, like when you were in the bathroom, it was like a long skinny bathroom, and if you were talking or singing in there, it would echo. And I heard her singing that and like mumbling or like talking to herself in like a sing-songy way, and it like gave me chills, like it scared me. And I was looking at the light like that was coming from the crack under the door, expecting to see a silhouette or like the shadow of footsteps or something, because she just was so close. And I yelled for Mom, and Mom visibly looked kind of freaked out and everything. But yeah, I don't know. It happened a few times. If you guys have already blown up one of my other stories, from the Appalachians in Tennessee and that childhood home and stuff. And so you seem to be, I guess, enjoying stories about that house in particular. So there's one for you. I will try to get to some other follower stories today. And so stay tuned for that. Alright guys, if you're doing what I'm doing and like laying in bed right now and you're about to watch this story, you may want to flip a freaking light on. This one I have had to spend all day gearing myself up for, because it is just that creepy and it scares me that bad. I don't like to think about this. I don't like to talk about it. But yeah, we're just going to all agree right now. We do not claim any like negative or bad energy from this video. Go watch some like happy frilly shit after you watch this. And just be prepared. So just like a little bit of a trigger warning on that. This is not just, this did happen in the Appalachian Mountains. This story did take place in the same house that my video from yesterday took place in. By the way, thank you guys, because y'all are like blowing that up right now. I'm glad to know that you're enjoying the spooky content. But this did take place in the same house. It is just not, it's not involving Appalachian like cryptids. It is something that is just, I don't know how else to say it. It's just like pure evil. Now this is a sleep paralysis story, that happened to my mom in that house in Tennessee when we were young. And, if you've ever had sleep paralysis, you already know. You already understand. I have had it myself at various points in my life, and it is terrifying. It is horrible. I'm lucky that I've not experienced it in years, but this is the first time that it ever happened to my mom, and it was, something was in our house that was absolutely pure evil this night. So buckle up. I'm literally laying here looking like a floating freaking head. Okay, so I'm having a hard time feeling like I'm like procrastinating. I've like redone this like 2 or 3 times because I just do not feel emotionally ready to like go through this whole story. I usually don't go like, you know, tell things that are of like a darker nature, or at least I haven't so far. But this is just one that you just have to share it, because we're just gonna bust this shit out. We're just gonna do it. Okay, so like I said, this story took place at the same house in the Appalachians of Tennessee that I grew up in. And it involves my brother, who was 5 or 6 at the time, and my mom and my dad. Okay. So, my mom, it's the middle of the night. She and dad are in bed. All of us are in bed, and, my mom was in that place where you're like not quite awake, but you're not quite asleep yet. Sorry for the glare on my glasses. My dad is asleep, and she's kind of in that in between. And all of a sudden, she feels this presence come into the room with her. And if you have ever felt something like this, you know, there is something just innate within you that you don't even have to have experienced it or been familiar with something. You just know that this is something that it makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. It is something that is there to do you harm, and it does not have good intentions, and it just feels evil. It feels very wrong. And it like sucks the air out of the room. It sucks the air out of your lungs. So my mom had never experienced sleep paralysis. She didn't even know what it was. When she told me this story years later, I was like, that's sleep paralysis, Mom. And people have different, experiences with the sleep paralysis. This was something that was like demonic. I don't know. So, she feels it come in the room. Now, she can't see anything, but when she goes to like move or sit up or start praying, she realizes she is completely paralyzed. Words will not come out of her, like her mind is racing. Her mind is racing. Words will not come out of her mouth. She is trying so hard to speak. She can feel the warmth of my dad's body next to her in the bed, and she is trying so hard just to move her fingers to reach my dad to try to wake him up, and she can't. She literally is like that, paralyzed. She cannot move. And she super quick side note, we respect all spiritual paths, all religious beliefs on this page. I'm telling this story from a completely unbiased standpoint. My parents are Christians. This is what brought my mom comfort during a really scary moment, and this is what her reaction was to it. So she is she's trying to, sorry for the glare again, she's trying to pray out loud or like say the name of Jesus. She cannot get it out of her mouth. She knows that if she can like get it out of her mouth, that it's going to make this thing go away. And she said that finally, like this thing, it is like getting closer and closer and closer to her. And she said that it got to the point where it's like standing, she could feel it standing over her bed. I've had the same shit happen. Like, this is so freaking creepy to me. So it is standing over her in the bed. It is like, and then it gets to where it is like on her body, like on her chest, like sucking the air out of her, sucking like the life force out of her. And she said that it was the most terrifying thing that she has ever felt in her entire life, and she really thought that she was going to be unalived. And she said that she could just feel tears streaming down her face. And she finally is able to, in barely a whisper, she said it was just above a whisper, get out the name Jesus, or the name Jesus. She said, Jesus, help me. And she was able to just keep saying that. She keeps repeating it over and over. Jesus, please help me. Jesus, help me. And it woke my dad up. Now, my dad, he's not superstitious. He does not believe in like paranormal, superstitious kind of shit. He hears my mom just saying like, Jesus, help me, or I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. He sits straight up. He lays over her and puts his arm over her body, does not know what is going on. He just knows, and he felt it. He felt the same exact thing. Now, if my dad says he feels something, that's some serious stuff, because like I said, that is just not my dad. And he just starts praying. And so finally, this thing, whatever, this demonic thing, releases my mom, releases her body. She can move again. She can talk again. Now, they are both sitting in the bed. She is just like weeping because this like petrified her. And next thing you know, they tangibly feel this presence just leave the room. And, this part always makes me feel so freaking sick. My little 5-year-old brother, he had never done anything like this. Next thing you know, he screams from across the house, Mommy, Daddy, help me. It's in my room. As a mother, that is so freaking scary. Like, thinking about my helpless, innocent baby, you know, and like something attacking me and then leaving my room and going and attacking my baby. Don't mess with my freaking kid, you know. So they get up, they run into my brother's room, and they grab him up, and they just kneel on the floor in his room and are like hugging him and praying, and just sat there praying and crying until that thing left his room. And I don't know if my mom has had sleep paralysis since then. If she has, definitely not anything like that. Not like that severe, you know. But, yeah. I like I said, I've had sleep paralysis before. I've had the exact same kind of thing happen. The same presence, like I remember my dad, he was a pastor for a long time. There was this church that he pastored, and it had a parsonage attached to it. Now, if you don't know what a parsonage is, it is a house on the church property that is for the pastor and his family. We didn't fully move in there, but we would stay there on weekends, or just sometimes on Sundays, and there was something wrong with that house. And it's on a church property. That sounds counterintuitive, or like a contradiction in terms. I should say, that specifically the upstairs bedroom. I have not had sleep paralysis that many times in my life, but let me tell you, any time that I stayed in that upstairs bedroom and I slept in that bed over and over again without fail, I had sleep paralysis. Like, excuse me, like the most like terrifying, evil, I don't know. It was so freaking creepy in that upstairs bedroom. I don't know what happened there. There was something wrong with that bedroom upstairs. That whole house felt freaking creepy, but specifically that room. It felt like something was like standing over your shoulder, like breathing, into your neck or something, and like watching you, and it felt super, super off. Not good vibes. And so I always had sleep paralysis there. It got to the point where I would not, if I stayed overnight there, I would not sleep in that room. I would sleep on the couch downstairs. And even then I would get creeped out. So yeah, I always had it at that church parsonage. And then there was like another point in my life when I was still with my ex-husband, where for like a spurt of time, it felt like something just kept coming and attacking me at night, and I would have sleep paralysis. And same thing where like I would feel my husband's body laying in bed next to me, and I'm trying so hard to reach him to wake him up. And sometimes I'd wake him up, like, cause he would hear me like gasping or trying to like talk, and I couldn't. And and then one other place, I used to be a caretaker for somebody who had like a traumatic brain injury, and his hospital bed was in the living room of the house. And sometimes if he would take a nap during the day, I would sit on the couch and like doze off. And any time that I like dozed off in that house, I had sleep paralysis there because the vibes were, I don't know. So yeah, y'all let me know if you have ever experienced sleep paralysis, or ever felt something that is not just icky and creepy, but something that feels like it is trying to hurt you. Yeah, we'll talk about it in the comments. As promised, it is time for another spooky story. If you have a spooky story of your own that you would like to share, feel free to comment or send me a DM. I can either tag you or leave you anonymous, whatever makes you most comfortable. Make sure as well to add me on Facebook, either as a friend or follow me at Autumn in Appalachia, same handle. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I'm going to go ahead at the very beginning and put a trigger warning on this. We, of course, are watching our wording, and I am changing certain words as to not violate community guidelines, but this is of a heavier nature, this story, some graphic shit, super creepy, so there's your warning. This is a story about how my dad encountered somebody who was possessed. Now, a tiny bit of context about my dad. He is not a heebie-jeebie person, and he was kind of reminding me of this story before I told it to make sure I got all the details right, and just straight up verbatim said, "Haley, you know me, I am a combat veteran, and I'm not scared of shit," but this rattled me. So back in the mid to late 90s, my dad was very involved in ministry at the church that we attended. And long story short, a mother came up to him one day and from the church and pretty much just said, "I need your help." So this mother goes on to explain that she has a son in his mid to late 20s and that there was something very dark spiritually going on with him. She essentially just explained that she believed he was possessed. He also was struggling with like substances and things like that, but she asked my dad, along with some of his other ministry friends in the church, to come over and pray for her son. And so that's what they did. Around a week or so later, they were able to get some free time one afternoon. So my dad and his friend Orban made their way over to this mother's house. Keep in mind the trigger warning because it gets dark from here. So when they get to the house, he goes inside, Orban is behind him, and they begin to walk down the hallway toward the son's bedroom. We're just going to call him Jake, okay, for the story. So they're walking toward Jake's bedroom. Before my dad even gets to the door, he said that he could already smell a really horrible smell. It smelled like rotting, decaying something. So they open the door, and Jake is in there, fully unclothed, sitting on a couch. He has bodily fluids, like red bodily fluids, fecal matter smeared all over him, all over his body, his face, everything. It was all on the walls. It was in carpet. He had, oh my goodness, he had taken a Dremel and filed all of his teeth down to a point, and he had a bunch of posters, life-size posters of musicians or celebrities that had committed sewer slide, and he had them hanging upside down on his wall. He had cut the heads off of all of the posters and had taken animal bodily fluid, red bodily fluid, and smeared it where the head of the posters would have been. He had also used the same red bodily fluids from animals to write all over the walls, just things like that. There were animals that were unalived and had had their heads removed, hanging upside down in his room, and liquid was being drained into like bowls. The mother explained that he would take, he never went out of the room in his door. He only used the window, and he would climb in and out of the window at night and go and take animals like pigs, chickens, whatever he could find, whatever pet he could find, and use them in rituals in a really like screwed up way, right? So my dad looks at Jake and says, "Jake, we're here to pray for you if that's okay." Jake stands up on the couch and starts speaking in a voice that should not be human, and did not sound human. And he was speaking some sort of other language, sounded something like Latin. I know that's cliche, but this is a real story. This really happened. And he is just like screaming. And Dad said that when he looked into his eyes, it was not like looking into a person's eyes. It looked animalistic. And the way that he was acting, his mannerisms, it was very animalistic, very primal in a not human type of way. Next thing you know, this man, I'm not kidding, jumps backward onto the wall behind him. Like he's standing on the couch and he jumps like a spider onto the wall behind him with his arms and his feet, and he begins crawling up the wall backward, like defying gravity. And he is like crouched there like some sort of an animal, screaming at them and making some sort of guttural like shriek or sound. And my dad said that he could hear his friend behind him, Orban, just start praying under his breath. I'm with Orban, like I have chills talking about this. Orban fell to his knees and started praying at the foot of the door. He was too scared to go in the room. And so this guy, Jake, is a few feet up in the air on the wall, and he crouches in this way. My dad said that Dad could tell he was about to jump. He was about to like leap onto them and attack them. So as you can imagine, Jake ends up leaping off of the wall, and in midair, bad bitch move, my dad catches him and slams him down on that couch. He said that when he slammed him down on the couch, that Jake started in a very animalistic type of way, biting and chomping, trying to like bite my dad's arm, his fingers, his face, like whatever he could get a hold of. And my dad was luckily able to hold him in such a way that he wasn't able to actually bite into him, but he is still making these very like guttural kind of screams, just the whole 9 yards, like some real exorcist type shit. My dad has never encountered anything else like this in his 50 some years, and so he just starts praying for this guy, and this goes on for a long time, like a few hours, where they are praying for him. And dad is, he eventually became like more docile and wasn't fighting as much, but the demons that were in this man released him, and he became a completely different person overnight. He immediately quit using the substances. He went and got like a new set of teeth and stuff, of course, because he had, destroyed his teeth with that Dremel. The mom said she called my dad the next day, bawling her eyes out, and said he is in there ripping the carpet out of his room right now. And like, thank you for helping give me my son back. And so, yeah, the story has a happy ending. He ended up getting married, having children. So they definitely do not believe that it was just a substance problem. It was also a spiritual problem. And whew, that's the story. Like I said, if you guys have any spooky stories of your own that you would like to share, feel free to comment or send me a DM. I probably will share either a follower story tomorrow or a story about a patient that my mom had in the hospital one time as a nurse. So stay tuned for that. Okay, you guys, it is that time again. Spooky stories about living in the Appalachian Mountains. So this story comes from my dad. It's one that has been told around the campfire for years, and it is definitely a spooky one. This would have taken place way up in the mountains, way back in a holler, sometime, I'd say in the 60s, the late 60s maybe early 70s. And when I say in a holler, I'm talking pinto beans and cornbread on a dirt road back in a holler. There are no towns close by. The only thing you had to rely on was your kinfolk or maybe your closest neighbors. There's no police you can call if anything goes down, So they, one night, went to what would have been my great-great-grandma's house. And all of the cousins, my dad, my mama, my uncle, they're going over there to have supper, spend the night, and Dad said that all the cousins and he would get like a feather bed and put it in the floor and sit by the stove and let, my great-great-grandma tell them spooky stories. So that's what they're doing. It's about midnight, and all of a sudden, something kicks the door in, and I do say something because it was not a person. Something kicked the door or hit the door so hard that it did not just rip the door off the hinges, it broke the door in half. Like ice cream sandwich broke that shit in half, and it was like a heavy wooden door. Now, I don't know what in the hell is strong enough to break a door like that in half, but that is what happened. You can imagine how terrified they all were. Now, my little mama, God rest her soul, she couldn't have been 115, 120 pounds soaking wet, and she is a fiery little redhead, and nothing was gonna mess with her babies. So she got her 12 gauge pew pew and just boom, 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 standing right there in the house out where the door used to be, the door frame, because they thought that some maniac was snooping around and trying to break in on them. And my Uncle Floyd is out there looking around, trying to figure out, is there anybody out here? There was nobody. There was nobody, and they didn't have anywhere to go. So they had to spend the night with no door. And I'm sure that was absolutely terrifying. Now, they were still not convinced that maybe it wasn't a person after that first night. So my Uncle Floyd obviously, stood guard for the next few nights, looking to see if they could catch anybody snooping around or coming back to the property. Nobody did. Nothing ever turned up, and I guess we'll never know what it was.
I can't imagine the absolute terror you must feel when you're looking out at your daughter and you see this huge man figure approaching her from the forest. I mean, I don't know which would come first, like knowing that you're in Appalachia and it's like a huge man, like taller than most are. I don't know if it would hit first that it's like, oh my God, something paranormal is trying to take my daughter, or if it's like, oh my God, there's some creepy man in the forest who's gonna like kidnap my daughter. I don't know which feeling would come first, but I would be so terrified if I saw that. So I don't blame her for like screaming at her to run. And I mean, I don't know. I would have a hard time like allowing my daughter to go outside by herself ever again after that. I would be so freaked out and convinced that this thing would come back and just like take her or something. This is probably, honestly, by far one of the scariest Appalachian stories I've heard. Make sure you go check out her TikTok profile because she has so many more stories. Our next TikTok's with user addairsfarmhouse.
So the story I'm about to tell you is not an Appalachian ghost story, but it is a ghost story that happened in Appalachia. Growing up, my mom was a single mom. We were always just kind of, doing the best we can. And I remember there was a time we were in transition and needed a place to stay. Well, a friend of my mom's who was very, very wealthy, she came to my mom and was like, hey, so I have a house and it is empty and has been empty for some time, and I really need someone to stay there, mainly because people vandalize and break into and all the things. So my mom knew the house, of course, and she was like, absolutely. She was ecstatic. Me being a kid, I was probably 7 or 8 at this time, not knowing what to expect. We pull up to this house, and when I tell you this house was massive, it was massive. The epitome of what you would see in a scary movie, haunted house, like literally looked like a haunted house. So we pull in, my mom and I go in, it's fully furnished. We walk in, I mean, completely, like, dining room is completely set up, living room is completely set up. I will never forget this giant organ that's set over on the side in the living room. There were two living rooms. That was a formal one. There was this big staircase in the foyer. Foyer stepped down. There was a room for a hot tub, several bedrooms. Then upstairs there were several bedrooms. This was a massive house. On top of the fact that there was also a basement. The upstairs had a master suite that had the bathroom attached to it. And of course, that's where my mom slept. And because I was a kid and I was terrified, I slept in there as well. At the end of that hallway was a room that always was locked. I don't know what was in it to this day. Across the hall was a room that we called my room, and it was blue. I never will forget. Everything was blue. The bed stuff was blue, and it had teddy bears on it. But I was terrified of that room. I wouldn't go in there. I wanted nothing to do with that room. I may have been in there twice in all of the months that we lived in this house. At night, I felt like the whole house took on a completely different persona. It just got dark. And I don't mean that in a physical light sense. It just got dark. Everything felt heavy and closed off. And actually outside, if you would see snakes and things like that, like you could stand on the balcony and just look at them. They just came out everywhere there. It was the strangest thing. Down in the basement, was a poker table, and literally it looked like someone had left in the middle of a game and left everything right where it was. Now, me as a kid, I never experienced any physical thing in that house. I never seen anything, but I felt it all the time. I would not leave my mom's side the entire time that we lived in this house. She would go to the bathroom and I would sit in the hallway outside the door. The whole place, great Aunt Martha floating around. But I do believe that spirits exist, and I do believe spirits can take on things that seem familiar to us. And I 1000% know with my whole heart that the spirit that attached to that man that ultimately made him unalive himself was still in that house. My mom later told me that there would be nights that we'd be in bed and she would stay up and read late, and she would hear the dishes downstairs. Even one time she dealt with hearing the organ in the living room playing music. Also later had friends tell me that later on, after we moved out and the house sat empty for a long time, people did go in. They would use it as a party place. They would break into it and party in there. And they had several experiences, one of which all the power was cut off and all of the lights in the house flashed red. Another in which someone was slammed against the wall in the room that consistently stayed locked when we lived there. There isn't a doubt in my mind that that house has an evil spirit. And it was terrifying. One last thing. That house is now an Airbnb.
Yeah, I don't know. If someone asks you if you want to live in their abandoned large mansion type thing, it may be a little bit too good to be true. Yeah, people do things out of the kindness of their hearts. But situations like this, you probably I guess desperate times call for desperate measures. Like, who's going to turn down free housing? But at the same time, it's like, you got to think about, why is someone offering me this amazing situation? There's got to be something wrong with the house. And in this case, there definitely was. Our next TikTok is with user Samo252.
This is a story time of the scariest thing that has happened to me as someone who has grown up in the Appalachian Mountains. I'd like to start off by saying I'm not scared of where I live. I have experienced some weird things in my lifetime, but I feel like a lot of people do experience weird things in their life. Maybe they don't, and it's just because I live here, but I have experienced some creepy things. The creepiest time I can remember is probably this one time that I was walking back from this oyster festival with my parents and my whole family, and we were standing kind of on this hill in the parking lot overlooking this cow field and a wooded area, and I heard screaming. When I tell you, it sounded exactly like a man screaming. I'm not kidding. I was terrified. I turned to my dad and I was like, do you hear that? And he doesn't get creeped out easily, and neither does my mom really, and they just looked at each other, and I remember my mom was like, David, what is that? And it was repeated screaming, it was help, help, help. It was really weird. And it did, there's a lot of animals around here that make noises. It sounded exactly like a human. I had no doubt in my mind that was a man screaming for help. And the people walking back to the cars from the oyster festival were listening to the screams. They were like, what is that? And so my dad, he started yelling off into the distance. He was like, hello? Are you okay? And we just sat there for a while, and there was no response. And then he yelled again for them, no response. And eventually they just stopped screaming. After the screaming stopped, I was like, there's no way this just happened. I'm getting in the car. So I ran to the car with my sister, and we got in the car, and we were just what was that? That sounded like a human. And I just remember my sister, like, genuinely freaking out. She was like, Mom, Dad, like, that was a human screaming. And they were like, of course, like, no, like, but why would they thought they were weirded out too. But I was like, should we call 911? And they're like, no, like, we shouldn't. He would have yelled back if, like, that's the weird thing. Like, if it was a human, why was he not yelling back at us? Like, yes, help me, you know? And at that point, I was just like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not sticking around for anything else. I'm scared. So I was like, I'm leaving. We drove away and we went home and nothing happened after that. And overall, like, I'm not scared of these mountains. I've grown up camping in them, like hiking in them. I'm not scared, but I have experienced some weird things. Yeah, anyways, let me know if you want any more stories.
All I have to say is if you hear something, no, you didn't. That definitely was not a person. That was no one or nothing that needed your attention, needed your help. It was something trying to lure you out there. Our next 5 TikToks are by the user alliecheyswrld.
I was born, raised, and still live here in the Appalachian Mountains. Growing up here, you're told certain rules and warnings on how to stay safe when you're out in the mountains. These rules have been passed down for generations and generations. I'm going to go ahead and tell you some of the rules that I heard and was told growing up here in Appalachia. You don't have to believe them if you don't want to. That's completely okay, but here we go. Rule number 1, never go out in the woods alone after dark if you can help it. Number 2, my granny was like adamant about this one. Make sure you close all your blinds and lock all your windows and doors at dusk. Number 3, don't whistle. Number 4, if you hear someone calling your name and you know that you're alone out in the woods, do not respond, even if the voice sounds familiar. Number 5, if everything in the woods goes silent all at once, like the bugs, the wildlife, and the birds all stop all at the same time, that's a sign that you should probably turn around and head back to your car or wherever you came from. Number 6, if something's following you, do not run. Y'all always cause a fuss over that one, but that's just because running initiates the predator versus prey instinct. Number 7, if you want to sleep out in a hammock, like out under the stars all night long, that's fine. Just make sure you keep a fire lit all night. It's not even all of like the basic rules. I could make a lot more of these videos. I've seen the videos in the comments making fun of the warnings, and I gotta say that they are hilarious. But I also feel the need to say that while some of the rules are just folklore and old wives' tales that our grannies told us like as kids to scare us and keep us out of the woods, these are actually real things that a lot of people around here, myself included, were told and heard growing up by their grannies, papaws, mammals, paws, or whatever. Not all of it was just old wives' tales or just told for no reason or just to scare you. Growing up here and living here, you do experience some unexplainable things. I think every single person I know has experienced something unexplainable that lives here, out in the woods or just in their backyard, sometimes even in their house. I think Kentucky is like the #1 most haunted state in America. There's also no denying that weird things do happen here in these hollers. Energy shift from day to night is definitely there. If you know, you know. Appalachian Mountains are incredibly old. They're older than bones, trees, and even Saturn's rings. There's so much folklore rooted in Appalachia, and I heard so many old wives' tales growing up here. I think I'm going to make like an entire series and just share everything I've heard. Let me know in the comments if that's something that y'all would be interested in.
What a beautiful sunset we're having tonight.
Part 1 of Where the Hell Did I Move? Haunted historical house in Appalachia built in the 1800s that used to be a funeral home and allegedly a Civil War hospital addition. Oh yeah, and the only neighbors were not 1 but 2 huge cemeteries, and the backyard was surrounded by the woods. I lived there for nearly 4 years. I do not live there anymore. We all experienced a lot of creepy things while living there, so this is going to be like a really long story time. They take multiple parts, and I have told these stories on here before, not all of them, but some of them, but I got scared and I took them all down. Or when I was talking about it online, it was like it got mad or something, I don't know, but things escalated and got so much worse, so I just took the videos down. Like, for y'all to fully understand the creepiness and all the context behind the story, I need to go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to before I ever moved in. I was living in an apartment with just me and my 2 kids. The reason I was even looking for a house to move into was because a neighbor of mine came to me and brought it to my attention that I had a peeping Tom looking in my back window every single night. It ended up being like a stalker situation where they tried to gain access to my home on several different occasions. I filed a police report and started looking for a new house. Keep in mind that I had a stalker. Important later on in the story. We're looking for a house for like a year. Houses are hard to come by in Appalachia. In my area, all the houses are already lived in, and when one comes available, it's rented within 5 minutes. I heard there was an old historical house for rent for only $600 a month. It's a pretty well-known house in our town, like pretty much everybody knows what house this is. This house is huge, and it's beautiful, and it's creepy and eerie and all the things. $600 was only $40 more a month than I was paying for my apartment, and like I said, this house was huge. It just fell in my lap. It seemed like it was meant to be, and it was a steal, so I was like, of course I'm going to call these people and check it out. It's one of the biggest homes in my small town, and probably one of the oldest that's still lived in. Like I said, everyone in my town knows this house. It sits up on this big hill across from this huge graveyard, and there's another graveyard to the left of it. And then there's just woods surrounding the backyard. It's on like the outskirts of town, but it still had a rural feel to it. The Kentucky River was right down behind it through the woods. When I called the landlord, they said that the house needed some work. They said if I was willing to look past that and if I wanted to do some of the work myself, they would knock it off the rent every month. There were several red flags right off the bat that I should not have ignored, but I was desperate and determined to make it work. When I first walked in, I could tell that it needed some cleaning and a fresh coat of paint on the walls. The first 3 rooms I saw were painted like this pretty yellow color, and the rest of the rooms downstairs were all painted different colors, but some of them were only like halfway painted, like somebody had started painting them and then stopped halfway through. The walls were like 2 different colors in some rooms, blue and white. They told me they were okay with me painting it, but they just didn't want me to paint it black or anything. And I thought that was kind of weird, but I didn't really know what they meant by that until we made our way upstairs. I asked how many bedrooms it was, and they told me that there were 3 bedrooms downstairs if you used the dining room as a bedroom, which some of the tenants had done before. And he went on to say that there were 3 more bedrooms upstairs, but most people usually just kept the upstairs closed off. I figured, what's the use in only using half of the house, and I wanted to have a dining room. I asked if we could go upstairs and take a look around. So we go upstairs, and the upstairs is made like a circle house, you know, like it's all intertwined and connected. First red flag, houses with that type of layout are like known for having a lot of spiritual activity trapped inside. I didn't know that at the time though. Like I said, there were 3 bedrooms upstairs, and they each had their own huge closets, and there was a big master bathroom. Second red flag, when we get to the middle bedroom upstairs, I finally realized why he had asked me not to paint anything black. This entire room was painted solid black, and it looked like it had been like spray painted or something. The walls, the doors, the trim, everything was just pitch black, the darkest black color I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie, it gave off like the creepiest vibes. The first thing I ever did was paint that room. I don't know why I didn't take any pictures of it beforehand. I felt like almost like embarrassed about that room in a way. I don't know. Anyways, so that's the first thing I did. I painted that room. I wish I had it before to show y'all because it was so fucking creepy. The landlord kind of laughed and said he wasn't sure what had happened in there. And I was like, oh, okay. We make our way back downstairs to the sunroom, which was like my favorite part of the house, honestly. Come to find out that is most likely where they stored the bodies when it was a funeral home. Anyways, it was beautiful. It was lined with windows. The walls were kind of destroyed and needed a lot of TLC. I was willing to put in the work. I seen the potential. I was so excited. There was this beautiful grand piano in there, and I was like, hey, can I have the piano? Does it come with the house? And he was like, yeah, as long as you take it with you when you leave. I was like, okay, this is like all too good to be true. What the heck? What could go wrong? Third red flag. The husband asks me, are you scared of ghosts? And I thought to myself, what a strange question. But he was smiling and laughing, so I laughed and I said, no, why? Side note, I have always been absolutely terrified of paranormal things. I've experienced things my entire life, but like I said, I was determined and desperate. He laughed and said, well, good, because everybody that moves in here moves out because they say that it's haunted. He said he couldn't keep a tenant because of it, and for other reasons, like people not paying their rent and just moving out. Like I said, he was laughing, and he said that he didn't believe in that kind of stuff, and he'd been there 100 times by himself, and nothing had ever happened to him. He went on to tell me that the cabinets in the kitchen had been nailed shut by a previous tenant because they would slam all the time by themselves, especially at night. I decided to look past all of this and still agree to moving in. It really needed to be cleaned, and it needed some work done to it, mostly just painting. So the first month or two after I had signed the lease, I would go there by myself almost every single day and either clean the place or paint it or just try to fix it up in some way. I feel kind of like out of breath even talking about it, but I always felt like there was somebody behind me. or like I was just always being watched, like, you know, the sense or the feeling that something's staring at you. Tried to ignore it, but it was overwhelming at times, to say the least. As soon as people started hearing that I was moving in there, they was telling me stories because, like I said, a lot of people have lived here in the past. I had 7 or 8 different people tell me that they had experienced or knew somebody that experienced something creepy in this house and that it was 100% haunted. And then I started hearing all the backstories behind it. People were telling me it used to be allegedly a Civil War hospital. I didn't find out until later that it used to be a funeral home. We'll get there eventually. I'm trying to keep the story in like the order that things happened. Nothing too weird happened before I actually moved in, other than like the sense of feeling like I was never alone and like I was being stared at and things like that. There's a basement. Of course there was a basement, and there was an attic space. I never went in either. Too scared to go like check out the basement, and so my dad went down there for me, and he said that there was a 10-foot snakeskin coming up the stairs. I have a video of that somewhere. I will try to find it. Basement was dirt floor, and there were like holes to the outside, you know, so I guess it could freely come in and out as it wanted to, and other things as well. It was full of like cave crickets, and it was just like a really cold, dark, scary place. I found the lease in like October, and I worked on it for a few months, so I think we moved in like the day before Christmas or something like that. Maybe a few days before Christmas. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. It didn't take long before like the paranormal creepy things started happening. The first like weird creepy thing that happened was probably about a month after we started staying there. My boyfriend would spend the night sometimes, but he had his own house, but he did have a key to my place. This particular night we were arguing. Like I don't even know what we were fighting about, but I do know that like we were mad about something. So I wasn't texting him back, and I thought for sure that he was just going to stay home that night. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning probably. Didn't check my phone to see what time it was. I was in bed asleep, and I am a really light sleeper. Woke up to the sound of my back door opening, and so I hear the back door open, and automatically I'm like alert, and I'm like, okay, somebody's here. So I hear footsteps, I hear keys get thrown onto the table, which is normally what my boyfriend would do when he came in. So I heard him, what I believed to be my boyfriend, throw his keys on the table and then come into the living room and lay down on the couch, what I thought, and go to sleep. Like I said, I was mad at him, so I was like, I'm not even gonna acknowledge that he's here. I'm just gonna go back to sleep and deal with it in the morning. Except in the morning, when I wake up and go look on the couch, nobody's there. So I text my boyfriend and I'm like, hey, were you here last night? And he was like, no, why? And I was like, oh, that's weird, because somebody was here. Somebody definitely came inside, and I heard keys and somebody walk into the living room. And remember, I had a stalker, so my first thought was not paranormal. My first thought was my stalker. So I went to investigate more, and I found the basement door open. I think I forgot to mention, this was the first night that I had spent in the house with just me. Like, my kids weren't there. They were spending the night with my mom this night. Close the basement door, and I leave, and I call somebody to come check out the basement and make sure nobody's down there, and there was nobody there, and I still was just feeling unsafe. This house had 6 entryways and 100 windows that were not very secure. Nobody was there. Nothing was there. And that was only the beginning of all the rest of the creepy paranormal shit that we were about to experience. Running out of time, I told you this was a long story. Stay tuned for part 2. Okay, so I have no idea what exactly it was that we saw that night. My friends and I go camping a lot, and our favorite place is the Red River Gorge here in eastern Kentucky. It's the closest place to where I live where you can see the Milky Way pretty much every single night. Our first experiences night hiking, we would go to trails that we knew well and were frequently used during the day. Ones with lots of fences and gazebo resting places like the Natural Bridge, which is like a 2 to 4 mile hike uphill, just depending on your starting point. Hiking on this trail at night is not allowed, but it's the woods, and I've never been one to care much about closing times for the literal outside. This night was weird to begin with. Almost as soon as we got going on the hike, the clouds started taking over, and we started to get the impression that we were going stargazing at pretty much nothing. But we went anyways, just in case it cleared out by the time we got up to the top, because you just never know with Kentucky weather. In the beginning, it was just the normal paranoia that was keeping us so stressed and quiet. You know you've reached the bottom of the bridge when you see a giant wall of limestone. It's after hours at this point, so no skylift rides have gone on for hours. And the rangers had already done their sweep and left right before we got out of the car and headed up. I guess I have to make these points because this is what I was thinking to myself when, like, out of nowhere, a girl appeared with a headlamp. And she begins to walk down the trail that we're looking out at. She was in a sundress and flip-flops. And while this is a fairly easy hike, it wouldn't be easy with no water or no real shoes, especially after dark. Her light was bright, and when she reached to where the trail turned down to where we were sitting, she just stopped. She just stood there, straight on. She was just sitting there staring at all of us, and I had to bring, like, my arm up to shield my eyes from the light because it was so bright. And it was shining, like, directly in my eyes. She didn't turn away from our lights at all, or even seem to be bothered that she had 6 LED lamps shining right in her eyes. I said hello, and she kind of replied, but with, like, a pause between every single word, something like, hello, how are you? I said, I'm good, how are you? And she took even longer pauses, and she was like, oh, I'm fine. She then just stood there with her hands to her side and just staring at us. Her light made it impossible to see her face, and I had my hand up the entire time because her light was just so bright. Until finally she just turned and slowly walked down the trail part that we had just came up from. She got to a part where the trail, like, turned, and we could see her light, like, just stopped there for a minute until she turned and the light faded out of sight. After that, we waited a little while before we headed on up. I made comments about how weird that just was, and everybody just made it out to me being always afraid. So we got up after a bit and we started back up to the top. We laid down and we tried to stargaze, but the clouds were even thicker at this time and we were all miserably hot. We could hear voices at times, and my friend kept checking for the people that we heard. We saw a flashlight and we never saw anyone attached to it. And then we heard, like, a bird call. But it wasn't like a real bird noise. It was like some person doing bird calls. Like rhythmic and not really natural at all. I was convinced that we weren't alone and hadn't been alone, but I'm the most easily spooked. I asked to leave whenever they were ready, and they were all ready to leave right then and there, which kind of scared me too. You know, just knowing that they're all just as afraid as I am at this point. We began going back downhill the same way that we came up, but it felt like it was taking so long. We were moving steady and quick, and it was all downhill, but it felt like we were making no grounds at all. It's hard to explain, but at one point I even said this feels much longer than the way up, and they all agreed. Okay, so now we're walking in like a semi-flattish area, at least compared to the downhill that we had been doing. The handrail or the wooden fence or whatever it is all on the left side of us. We're all walking in a row when all of a sudden my friend says, "What's that?" But the question was more of like an alert, so I moved my headlamp in that direction and I don't see anything at first. At the same time, all 6 of our lights start to shine and like reflect off of a light gray creature. It's bent in a crouching position, sitting on its right leg, and it starts to turn towards us. It starts to stand up, but my mind is like racing at this point. It almost looks human, but it's too big. It's tall and thin, and it was so light gray that it was almost white, and its skin almost resembled dolphin skin. Like it has a shine to it, like it reflects in the light when our headlamps hit it. It's gradually coming to a full standing position in front of us. Its head is long and its eyes are in like a human position on the front of its face, like not like an animal, like on the side of its face. I couldn't see any other facial features, almost just big empty holes or pits for its eyes. Its arms hung down low by its knees, and its hands seemed to be long too. I'm gonna guess it stood at like 9 feet or so tall, and it was right there in front of us. It had no hair, like at all. And it had a big head. Like I couldn't process what I was seeing. I was just frozen, and I felt my friend hitting me, just saying, "Run, run, run." I start to understand that we have to get away from this thing, and that's when it pivots and runs to the right, going backwards along the trail so it can get around the barrier and get on the trail behind us. We took off running down the trail, knowing in our minds that that thing took off a lot faster than we did. Didn't talk at all because when we tried, it felt like we were going to get caught. We kept running just as fast as we could, but some areas were just so steep. It never felt like we were out of the sight of this creature, not even for a second. As we made it to the trailhead with like the gravel, we could hear something crashing down in the forest beside us. We all just ran as fast as we could and jumped in the car, and we drove down the road just as fast as we could until we got to the main road, and then the sky cleared up, and then the stars came out. This happened in southeastern Kentucky. I'm staying at my parents' house this week to take care of their animals while they're on vacation. They live in a log cabin deep in the woods, high up on a mountain. Since I would be staying for the week, I brought my dog with me. Tuesday morning of this week, he woke me up sometime before dawn, frantically running from me into the door and back, scratching and whining. I thought he wanted out, so I opened the back door to let him out, and he bolted the opposite direction towards the bedroom. I stood in the doorway for a minute trying to figure out what felt off, because something just didn't feel right, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The air felt heavy and the sense of dread just slowly crept up on me. So gradually that I didn't even notice at first. My mom had actually mentioned that same feeling earlier this week, but she attributed it to the coming storms. It took me a minute to realize that it was completely and totally silent out there. No bugs or frogs, no early morning birds, not even a breeze, nothing at all. Until I hear a faint screaming coming from the top of the mountain. I shut the door and locked it and every other door and window in the house, pulled all the blinds and curtains shut, and followed my dog to the bedroom to wait for daylight to come. The security cameras kept alerting me, motion detected, but when I checked the cameras, there was nothing there on the video. I've grown up on Appalachian folklore, but this is the only time I've actually experienced it firsthand. And that was a story I had sent to my email, alliecheyswrld@gmail.com. If you have an unexplainable or spooky story you'd like for me to tell here on my TikTok, you should send me yours too. It doesn't have to be located in the Appalachian Mountains, that's just where I'm from.
Let me preface this by saying this house was built in the 1800s. The home in our backyard dates back to the Civil War. There are actually legends of it being used as a Civil War hospital, and my only neighbors are cemeteries. This house is huge. Including bathrooms, it has like 14 rooms. So this is supposed to be the first living room, and that's the second one, but we utilize it as a bedroom. Some of these videos were taken before we moved in, and you can see some of them were done like after we were making progress. This is the cutesy kitchen and the creepy basement that I've never been in. They said there's like a 10-foot snakeskin shed coming up the stairs, so no thank you. When we painted the island, we found the signature from 1972. But here's just another look at the cute little sunroom. I love it. I can't wait to fix it up this spring. And I don't have a video, but this is the foyer. And there are beautiful wall inserts just like this throughout the whole house, which I am obsessed with. This room I use for work. And honestly, this is like a very brief overview. There's probably like 6 or 7 more rooms that I didn't even get to in this video. So let me know if you want a part 2. But here's the upstairs. This is one of my daughter's rooms. All 3 rooms upstairs come with these creepy ass closets. And yes, we have experienced some weird stuff in this house for those of you wondering. And here's the master bathroom.
Okay, this is a little bit of a similar situation with if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Obviously, it's like you need a place to live, for sure. But some places might be a little too suspicious to compromise for because, I mean, if you end up with like mental trauma because the paranormal situation in this house is so bad, that's another problem. I mean, it's so interesting to me how forward the landlord was about the situation that it's like, yeah, this house is haunted, haha, hope you're not scared. Like, many people have moved out and run away from this because, like, normally they, like, try to manipulate you and, like, pretend nothing's wrong until you're, like, locked in on the lease. I don't know, crazy, but apparently he found the right person to say that too because she was like, I'm gonna move in here anyway. Our next TikTok's with user kylie.maecin.
Hey, my little creek critters, it's your favorite creekside cousin here in Appalachia. Pull up a quilt and get cozy because we got an Appalachian spooky story time today. I have literally been running ragged all day, and the noggin is empty. So, of course, I'm thinking spooky because I'm a spooky little girl. So, there's a few little Appalachian story times. We're going to start at the first one, which is from my little ancestors. Not really my ancestors, but my great-grandpa. So my great-grandpa grew up really poor, okay? So they rode mules everywhere, okay? So there's this mountain, and he's riding across it, him and his cousin on their mules. Important story time, fact here. My papa's mule was lazy, okay? The laziest mule ever. He said that it would not run. It wouldn't do nothing. He'd kick it as hard as he could. He'd whip it. It would not run. Okay, this mule was stubborn. I guess that's where they get the saying stubborn as a mule. I don't know. So they're riding their mules across this mountain. It is pitch black. They ain't got no way to see. Just the moonlight. They might have had a lantern. I don't know. But, you know, a lantern ain't got that much light coming from it. Especially when you're outside. Anyways, besides the point. So they're riding and talking, and he said something jumps out of the tree that looks like a potato sack. Because, of course, that's the only thing that he really knew to compare it to. He said a potato or feed sack. If you live in Appalachia and you have an actual local feed store, then you know what those look like. Just little, literal burlap sacks. And he said that these sacks started running at them. He was terrified. But guess what? So was his mule. The hair on that mule's neck stood up, and that mule, for the first time in its life, ran. He said it never ran again till the day it died, but it did that day. Another story comes from the same great-grandpa and his wife, my grandma Betty Jo. Now, Betty Jo was a God-fearing woman, and so was my papa, so they didn't really believe in haints and boogers. But they did believe in demons, which is what they think this was. So my papa and my granny, they slept in separate beds because they loved each other, but sleeping, they got on each other's nerves. Papa snored too loud, granny hogged the covers, it just wasn't working out. So what did they do? They slept in separate beds, of course. So this would happen 2 or 3 times, and out on the same night every time. Papa would be asleep with his quilt pulled up just like y'all, and something would start dragging the covers off the end of the bed. And he'd pull it up and he'd scream, "Stop, stop!" And it wouldn't until he prayed it away. On the same nights that would happen, my granny would feel something jump up and off her bed. On and off, over and over, and she'd be too scared to turn around and look at it. And when she finally did, there's nothing there and the jumping would stop. Now, that's not a coincidence, I think not. Next story is about my grandma, who I call Sissat and Mom, Teresa. Now, Teresa don't believe in nothing. She thinks that she just believes in God. That is all. Kendall's back there laughing because she knows I'm right. God is the only thing this woman believes in. Anytime I talk about some hoodoo Appalachian mountain magic, she's like, "That ain't real and you know it." Do I know it? No. So, my papa was working night shift, and she is a terrified woman. She'd fight for her children and grandchildren. This woman is tough, Appalachian strong, but she is a terrified woman. Okay? That's important. So, she gets all the kids, 3 kids, my uncles and my mom in bed, and she's laying there with her quilt pulled up too. And one of my uncles, they had just put a new door on, and the hole was there from the doorknob. And my uncle, one of them, said, "Mom, is Dad home?" She said no. Why? And he had to pull out the craziest sentence ever known to man. "Whose eye is that looking at us through the door hole then?" She got them kids up so fast and went to my granny and papa's. Valid. Now, this woman would go on while he was working night shift to wake up looking at the window, standing up looking at the window in the bedroom. One time she's standing over the kids in the bed. Crazy stuff. She still yet doesn't believe in anything weird. Okay. Now, the next story comes from yours truly. Now, some might blame this on a mental illness, but I don't think it was. So, whenever we first moved into this house, somebody died in it. Rest his soul. They were a real sweet couple. I don't think they'd ever do nothing to us. It's just like a presence in this house. Sweet little presence. But when we first moved in, I think they were agitated. So, I'm chilling in my bedroom, my little cozy, comfy bedroom, and I hear my mom and my sister and my sissat walk in. I hear the keys dangling. I hear, "Hi, puppies, hi, puppies." And my dog even perks up because she's sitting up here with me. And I was like, they must be home. I go downstairs and see their car pull in the driveway. They weren't home. The door was locked. So I asked them, "Did y'all come in here earlier?" Obviously, they said, "No, we just got home." This continues to happen multiple... Them freaking stink bugs. This continues to happen multiple times. Okay? And it's to the point now, like, I'll text whoever yelled at me and be like, "Did you yell at me?" The other day, actually, Kendall hollered at me from the bathroom, and it sounded like she yelled from me for the kitchen, and I was like, "Were you in the kitchen?" And she said, "No." I said, "Did you yell for me?" "No." "What do you mean, no? I know you did." Last story time, and I promise I'll let y'all go. I'm holding over like church. So, me and Kendall get home from a nice little time, and the doorknob to the garage goes, and opens up. No one's there. I grab Kendall so fast, grab a kitchen knife, and of course, I call my uncles. They come check the entire house. Even the upstairs under the beds, in the closets. We have a bunch of crawl spaces, Coraline type crawl spaces. Nothing. I was like, "No, there was something. You just can't see it because it don't want to be seen." So, my little creek critters, I hope you enjoyed this Appalachian spooky story time. Until next time, sayonara.
Seems to be a huge trend in this video about things jumping on and off people's beds and messing with them while they're asleep. I think I might have a rough time falling asleep tonight after hearing all of these stories. Our next TikTok spookies Nomad Animal Encounter.
Growing up in Appalachia, we have no shortage of ghost stories. So here's one that happened to me and my mother back when I was about 11 years old. So growing up in this house that I spent about 7 years of my childhood in, we had an experience where a man had actually hung himself before we moved in. So we had reoccurring things that happened, such as our dog stopping in the exact spot where he hung himself, and their hair would stand up and they would growl looking up, like they'd be looking at where his body would have been as it was hanging. And their hair would just stand up, and they would do this about once a week, once every other week, and it would last for 5 or 6 minutes. That's just the background of this house. And that's enough to just pretty much end the story right there. But we talk about mimic behaviors and stuff on here, and how things tend to try to mimic things that they might think your loved ones would do to get your attention. Because if you know about like supernatural entities, when you show them attention, they gain power and gain a hold on you. So if you're ignoring the things they're doing, they might want to try to trick you into showing them that attention. So my brother at the time, he's 9 years younger than me, so he'd have only been a couple years old at this time. And he used to hold his blanket and he would suck his thumb, and he would do this like huff and puff noise. It's hard to describe, but it would just be like when he would suck his thumb. And there was a morning where he had already gone to daycare. I think he was at daycare, and my mom had came back, and I was like sick that day. I was staying at home. So it was just me and my mom in the house, and she was in bed still. Anyhow, she was laying there, and she was kind of in that state where you're like kind of awake, kind of not. And she feels a very distinct tapping on her shoulder, and she was laying, with her back towards the room, and she was facing the wall. She heard felt this distinct tapping, and she just kind of like got wide-eyed because she knew that she didn't hear anybody open her bedroom door. She knew that she didn't hear anybody walk over to the bed. Her bed was also kind of tall, so she knew that he wouldn't be able to reach her easily, and I would have had to climb on the bed to actually reach her where she was at. So she's like kind of eerie because she knows somebody just tapped her on the shoulder, and she laid there. She said a few seconds went by, and she feels it again, but this time it's a little bit harder. It was like a long, solid press, on her shoulder. And she just said at this point, she's wide awake, and she's just freaked out. She does not want to roll over. And right in her ear, she just hears... And just like the little huff and puff my brother normally would do when he would suck his thumb. And so she rolls over like in a snap. Like she just snaps over as fast as she can. And obviously there's nothing in this room. I'm getting cold chills talking about this. And this was like the same day, but that afternoon. After my mom came in and she'd asked me, she was like, "Hey, was that you? Did you come in there and then run out of the room?" And, she knows this can't be true. It can't happen, but she's wanting to reiterate. And that afternoon, they had actually left me. I was a latchkey kid. A lot of the kids in the 90s were latchkey kids, and I was no different. And so they had, they'd gone to work. Dad had gone to work. Mom was, I think she was going to college at this time, actually, finishing up her teaching degree. So I was home alone. And somebody's coming down the hallway. I can literally hear the footsteps coming down the hallway of my house. And I'm in my bedroom door, and I used to always keep my bedroom door locked when I was home alone, just in case somebody broke in or whatever. And I'm like hearing somebody's footsteps coming down the hall, and I know they're coming down this hallway. And then like the doorknob jiggles. To this day, it's like I blacked out. Like it was like an hour later, and then I was just like sitting on my couch. I had a couch in my bedroom. And I was just sitting on the couch, and I was like, "What? Like I remembered it like it just happened a second ago." But when I looked at the clock, it was an hour past. That's an hour that I have lost entirely of my life. No idea why. And as I'm telling this story, my dogs are going nuts. It's a full moon tonight, and there's like some crashing in the woods back there. So we're signing out.
This is another good example of why there are the rules. If you heard something, no, you didn't. If you see something, no, you didn't. Because when you interact with these things, the more attention you give it, the more energy you give it. And obviously, like he said, they'll try and trick you into giving them attention without you realizing that you're doing it at first. So, sometimes there's just no way to prevent it because you don't realize that something's tricking you at first. But if you can actively avoid giving these things attention, you're kind of like brushing them off and they'll kind of fade off into the background. The more you pay attention to it and talk about it, the more you're giving them power to continue what they're doing. So keep that in mind if you are having a situation that you might want to get rid of. Maybe try pretending that it doesn't exist. I know that's easier said than done, but if you ignore it for like a week, just see what happens. Our next two TikToks are by the user Appalachian Amanda.
So I don't know if we're doing haunted house or ghost stories on this app or not, but I've got some free time this evening, so I'm going to share with y'all one of mine. My very close friend owns this house. Part of it was built pre-Civil War. I'm here often, and many times when I've been here, electronics just totally malfunction. Phones do weird stuff, remote controls, TVs, speakers, just all have a mind of their own. Sometimes when I've been here, she and I have heard voices. She chalks it up to the road kind of being close. So she kind of always explains the voices away. It's a passing car that you hear the voices coming from. But back in 2020, she had to go out of town, and I will often look after her home and her dogs when she travels. So I'm here, I'm due to stay 2 nights. Night 1, I'm hanging out on the couch with the dogs watching TV, and I hear a voice. It's a lady's voice. I don't know what it said, but it was definitely coming from down the hall and around the corner. For sure was not coming from the road. There was also no car passing at that time. So I get up and I was going to go investigate. The dogs accompany me to the kitchen. And just as I walk into the kitchen through this doorway, there's a television setting on this counter that I didn't even know was there. But the minute I walked through this door, boom, the TV turns on by itself. So at first I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's on a timer. I would later find out that is not the case. But anyway, the dogs start barking. So I'm starting to get a little nervous, a little bit uneasy, turn the TV off, and I decided to go upstairs and go to bed. So I round up the dogs and I bring them both upstairs with me. Twice they leave and go back downstairs. I went down once, brought them back up with me, and they go back down. So the second time I just let it go. But they sat at the bottom of the stairs and barked. Barking to beat the band, relentlessly barking. And I decided I was going to try to go to sleep anyway, so I lay down in bed. Well, about 10 minutes later, this closet door right here, which is a very heavy, solid door that takes a lot of effort to open, I see it just ever so slowly and very intentionally open, like that. The door opens all the way up. I'm watching in horror, like my heart is pounding through my chest at this point. Keep in mind, there's no ceiling fan in this room. There's no draft. There's no reason for this door to have opened by itself. So I jump out of bed, run to this bathroom, flip on the light, and proceeded to have a stare down with the closet for a few minutes to make sure that no creature was going to come climbing out of the closet to physically harm me. So once I felt safe, I gathered up my things and hightailed it downstairs. I'm going to have to make a part 2. I promise it gets interesting. So the closet door is open by itself. The TV turned on by itself. I've heard voices. I'm totally freaking out at this point. Spend the rest of the weekend sleeping on the couch because I'm too scared to be upstairs. So my friend gets home and I tell her what happened and she's intrigued. We happen to have another friend who is part of a paranormal investigation group. So we brought them in a few weeks later. They roll in with a professional photographer and all this equipment and lights and sensors and stuff and set up shop for the night. So the investigator comes with this contraption. She called it a T-bar, and it had lights and antennas, and it made a continuous white noise. And occasionally you would hear a voice come through. It sounded kind of like a radio. You could make out some of the things you could decipher, and then some things were nonsense. But anyway, we take it around the house. She takes it upstairs. She goes to that bedroom and she says, "Who scared Amanda? Who was in here that night? Who opened the closet door?" And plain as day, we all heard it. A man's voice comes through and says, "Thomas." Now, this paranormal investigation team, they have a YouTube channel. It's called Moonlit Paranormal. You can go check it out. You can actually watch the episode of this investigation on YouTube. They do a lot of investigations that are really interesting around Central Appalachia, so y'all might want to check that out. Anyway, they wrap up the night around, 4 in the morning. We all go home. The next day, my friend calls me and says, "I think I might know who Thomas is." Thomas Hawkins was the original builder of this house. Not only that, but he signed his name in 2 places in this home. One place was the top of this door frame right here, and the other place is on a mantle. Now, they've both been painted over, but when they were doing the renovation work on this house, they found the signatures. So he was kind of a famous builder in the area, built a lot of homes here around that time frame, and he always signed his homes. He was very proud of it. So best we can figure is that Thomas doesn't like me very much, and that's who was trying to run me out of here that night. Some other things happened that weekend during my stay here that were definitely paranormal in nature, but that's a TikTok for another day.
I can't imagine how scary it would be to be like at your friend's house by yourself and her dogs are just losing their minds at something that you cannot see. Obviously, you know there's something there. You know that they can see something, but you can't. That would freak me out. I would like shoo them upstairs, lock them into a room with me, and we would hide out there until daybreak. Our next TikTok's by the user, Just Do It.
I am born and raised in the mountains of North Carolina, specifically the Appalachian Mountains. And in honor of Halloween weekend and me trying to get more comfortable talking in front of the camera, I'm going to share a story that involves a haunted church. When I was a freshman in college, I was also roommates with one of my high school best friends, Anna. Anna and I went through a phase where we were honestly kind of obsessed with anything that was haunted just because I think we were so intrigued with it. One weekend, we decided that we wanted to go home. While we were home, we decided that we were going to meet up with two guys in Boone at the Walmart parking lot, and we were going to go to this church that was proclaimed to be haunted. I personally did not believe that it was haunted, but I was down to give it a whirl and go visit. So we meet up with these guys, and it's the two guys that are in the front seat. Anna and I are in the back seat, and these guys, I believe that they were volunteer firefighters, but they had like all of the things in the trucks. They had like the CB radio, they had like all kinds of like technology things in their truck. I don't know what they were. I just know that one of them was a CB radio. That's important for a little bit later on in the story. So we get to this church, he parks the truck, and we get out. And to be honest with you, I kind of stay back at the truck just because I didn't really want to test the waters if the church was actually haunted. So I kind of stood at the truck. The guys go do their thing. I think one of them literally goes to pee in the woods. The other one is just kind of like walking around. And Anna is not directly beside me, but she's kind of near me as well. And we're just kind of chilling. Then at one point, the guys kind of come back, so we're all kind of standing near the truck, just kind of chit-chatting. When all of a sudden, the three of us, so the two guys and I, all three hear the exact same thing. It's a very, very, very deep, dark voice that says, "Get out." Now, I also heard children laughing in the background, so I am the only one of the four of us that heard children laughing in the background and the "get out," but three of us heard an incredibly deep, dark voice that said, "Get out." So we haul into the truck. We're like running in there. And I just remember looking at Anna going, "Anna, what are you doing? Get in the truck. Did you not hear that?" Anna's like, "No, I didn't hear it." Oh my gosh. So she gets in the truck and the guys literally zoom off. We just go right past and we just get away. Well, I forgot to mention this in the very beginning of the story, but the church is on a dead end road. It's also a dirt road. So he gets to the end of the road and we realize that we have to turn around, pass the church again to actually leave the area. Before he passes the church again, he literally stops the truck, turns the radio down, and he says, "Are y'all ready?" This might sound so dramatic, but we literally wanted to brace ourselves before he passed the church again. And how the church is located, it was literally like in the center of the road, and you kind of like had to go around it to get past it. So you would literally, as we were leaving, we saw the front of the church, and then as we were leaving, we saw the back of the church. But we literally pass it, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you that the church was glowing red. And in addition to that, all of our cell phones turned off. The radio was changing channels. The CB radio was going static, and all of the things that they had on their visors were literally just static radio sounds. Everything was just going, all the technology in the truck was literally wigging out as we're passing the truck. So obviously, we're pretty freaked out, nonetheless. We eventually get back to Anna's car, and at this point, I literally was so freaked out. I was like, "Anna, I'm staying the night with you. There's no way I'm going home." Absolutely not. As Anna and I are leaving Boone to head back up to Banner Elk, we notice that there's like this red globe light that's kind of following us the entire way up to her house. We park her car at her house, and her house is literally located on top of a mountain. It's absolutely stunning. And her house is here, and then like her front yard, backyard area is what I would consider like a valley, kind of. It's just like a big, beautiful field. And we park her car, and that red globe is literally in the field in front of us. And we're just like, what the heck? Do you see what we see? Like, that's so weird. I can remember this like it was yesterday. Us seeing that red globe following us the entire way, and then in her front yard completely freaked us out. So we literally counted down so we could brace ourselves to leave her car to get inside of her house. As we're running into the house, we hear church bells ringing. And I haven't mentioned this part yet, but it was nighttime. I think it was probably close to midnight by the time that we actually made it to her house. So definitely not a time of the day that you would hear church bells ringing. Fast forward like maybe 20-ish, 30-ish minutes, heck, maybe even an hour, who knows. We were both so freaked out. I was just on the cusp about to fall asleep when all of a sudden Anna's mom comes running into Anna's room and she's like, "Girls, what are you doing?" We were like, "What are you talking about? We haven't done anything. We've been home for probably an hour. We've just been chilling. Like, what are you talking about?" She was like, "I heard the door shut so hard that it woke me up. It literally woke me up." We were like, "Marsha, we haven't done anything. We've not moved since we got home. We really don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't us." And she was like, "All right, well, that's weird." So then we all fall asleep. And then this is the part where I promised I would never fiddle with anything haunted ever again after this next detail. That next morning, we woke up and I had scratches and bruises all the way down both of my legs. Now, I don't know about you, but that's pretty daggum freaky if you ask me.
It seems like something followed them back. I mean, I don't know how else you explain it. If they're just like sitting there quietly and her mom's hearing things, there's this red glowing light that's following them. They have this horrible experience like at a church. Like, churches are supposed to be like safe places to people, but they're at this haunted church and they just have this horrible, horrible experience. And then there's this red glowing light following them. I don't know how else you explain that except something attached itself to them and followed them back home. Our next TikTok's by the user, elimaxwellmitchell.
I caught a ghost on camera when I lived in the Appalachian Mountains, so this video is for all y'all non-believers. I moved in with my grandmother to take care of her. She lived in a very creepy 2-story house in the woods in the Appalachian Mountains. This picture, I took this in 2015, and it was late at night. I was the only person in the house because I was getting the house ready for my grandmother to move back into. She was in the nursing home and I hadn't actually moved in yet. Ever since I was a kid, this house absolutely terrified me in the basement because it was so dark, and there was a sailor down there that had these huge, I call them cave crickets. I've never seen one since I left that house. I don't know if it's something that's in other houses. It's this giant cricket. Anyways, it's terrifying. I took this picture just because I was proud of the progress I'd made, and I never realized there was anything in it until I started telling these stories about being from the Appalachian Mountains and having all this scary stuff happen to me.
This basement always scared me. I wasn't a paranormal investigator. I wasn't really trying to catch anything on camera. My proof was everything that I heard and the outcome of that, like the shattered glass door panel and the boots on the floor. But this basement, I mean, it's pitch black at night. I would never go down here by myself when I was a kid, but my bedroom was down there as an adult because the bedroom upstairs was tiny and it was full of my grandmother's doll collection. So you can see it looks like a pretty normal basement. There's not really anything scary going on down here. I've cleaned it up. It's nice and cozy until I pan over to the fireplace. In the shadows in this fireplace, I don't know if y'all see this immediately like I did. That is, to me, a baby or something in the form of a baby. And other people are seeing other things in the shadows here. I see a couple other things, but that's what stands out to me the most. I circled it here so that way y'all did not have trouble finding it. This is terrifying because this was in the basement with me at night in the Appalachian Mountains, and I didn't even know it. I mean, I knew that the basement was scary, but I didn't know that there were things looking at me. That baby, or whatever it is staring directly into my soul as I'm taking this picture. Y'all, what would you do if this was your house in the Appalachian Mountains?
I'll be honest, I don't know if I see anything in that photo specifically. I definitely believe him that the house is haunted and he experienced many things there, but I don't really see what he's talking about, like a baby in the fireplace. I don't really see that. I mean, it looks kind of creepy. It's like a creepy photo, and I definitely think that there's enough kind of like darkness and shapes there that maybe you could make something out and your mind can play tricks on you, but I don't see what baby he's talking about. Our next TikTok's by the user, itsSavanadarling.
Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. Just a little series where we have some tea to keep it nice and classy, but I also tell you scary stories. Tonight's story is very scary, so with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you a scary story. I am absolutely obsessed with this tea. This is the Benner tea that you can get from Aldi. It's the green tea in the flavor pomegranate. Easily has become my favorite tea. This story comes from Carrie. My name is Carrie, and I have a few spooky stories that happened to me and several friends/family members when I was a teenager. These probably won't be as spooky as plenty of the ones you've gotten before, but they are pretty crazy. It's not just one thing that happened, but several different things that happened from the time I was around 16 until I was in my early 20s. I lived in Mississippi most of my life, raised there, and moved to Tennessee in 2021. The town I lived in was so small you would miss it if you blinked. It was a fairly rural place, and where my house was, we were surrounded by trees and woods. There was a creek that ran next to my house, and my siblings and I used to play in that creek all the time, and we would always find arrowheads and things like that. Fast forward to when I was around 16. I'm now 32. A few friends, my boyfriend at the time, and I decided it would be a fun idea to play with a Ouija board in my home. Not a fun idea. For weeks after that, I always felt like there was someone or something standing in the corner of my room watching me at night as I slept. I distinctly remember one night trying to go to sleep, and just as I was about to doze off, I heard my name being whispered. I was in that state of half asleep, half awake, so I just thought I was hearing things until I heard it again. As soon as I heard it again, I yelled out, "Leave me alone and let me sleep." I didn't hear it again after that. Fast forward again a few years later. 2 friends of mine were at my house. I'll explain the layout of my house so you can get an idea of where we all were at the time of the occurrence. We had 2 double-wide trailers hooked together to make a T formation, and when you walked in my front door, you were walking into the living room, and my bedroom was off to the left. You would then walk into a dining room area with the laundry room off to the left, and to the right you would go around a corner into my kitchen. Right past the kitchen was a den area that my mother had walled in and made into a closet, and to the right was a spare bedroom and a spare bathroom. Keep going down the small hallway and through a door, that's where you would enter my mother's house, into the laundry room, which opened up into the kitchen and living area. Her bedroom was off to the left, and another bedroom and bathroom off to the right of the kitchen, and her office to the left. On the night in question, I was in my mom's office on her computer, downloading music on. If you know, you know. One of my friends was in the living room and the other end of the house, and the other friend was in my bedroom with the door closed. As I was downloading music, I remember downloading one song, and when I played it played back really distorted. If you're familiar with back then, that wouldn't have been strange because some of the songs were just corrupted and would play wrong and you would move on to the next one. The strange thing was, normally, if a song was corrupt, it would play wrong every time. But when I played the song back again, it played perfectly fine. For some reason, this didn't set right with me, and I got the horrible sense of dread that washed over me that I couldn't explain. Something told me I needed to stop what I was doing and go check on my 2 friends, and most importantly, get out of that room. As I got back into my side of the house and made it to my first friend, his face was pale white and was curled up on the couch, looking clearly shaken up. When I asked him what happened, he said he was playing on his laptop and heard my dog outside start barking uncontrollably. Then he heard what sounded like something large, like the size of a car, slam into the side of the house, and even felt the house shake. I didn't feel any of this in the room I was in, and I will also preface this by saying the dog never barked at anything, ever. Even when other animals came into the yard, she never barked at anyone or anything. But as I was talking to him, I could hear her going absolutely crazy. When I looked outside, she was facing my front door at the bottom of my steps, still barking, but there was absolutely nothing out there that could have made that noise he described. Right around the same time we were looking outside, my other friend came out of my bedroom, visibly shaken. When we asked him what happened, he just shook his head and just kept repeating, "We need to go," and wouldn't tell us what happened. I still to this day have no idea what he saw or heard. I also want to add that at this time I had a piano with a mirror attached to it in my living room against the front wall right next to my front door. So the piano and mirror were facing my dining area and entrance to my laundry room. As we were all standing there trying to figure out what was going on, I was standing facing this piano with the dining area at my back, and both of my friends were facing me. I looked up into the mirror of this piano, and I very clearly saw something run out of my laundry room into my kitchen area. It was like a black shadow. I immediately looked through the little window that was open from my living room into the kitchen, and I saw nothing. The next day I'm telling my mom what we saw and experienced, and she said around the same time all of that was happening to us, she woke up because she felt something staring at her. And when she opened her eyes, she saw a woman in all white with glowing white eyes, hovering parallel to her, right over her, probably an inch from her face. She said she closed her eyes quickly for a few seconds, and when she opened them, it was gone. She also had several instances throughout my childhood where she would hear something meow in her room shortly after she had put one of her cats down. And there were several occasions where she said my dad would be gone out of town, and she would feel someone get into bed with her or sit on the edge of her bed. She continued to experience this even after they had divorced and he moved out. Several years after all of this happened, my brother, not biologically, just a close friend I grew up with, moved in with us. He told me of several times that he would go into the kitchen at night and would see things move out of the corner of his eye. He also said that he would be there alone and would sometimes hear someone walk through my living room, and he would go to check to see if I was home, but no one would be there. He said at one point he leaned over to look through the window in my kitchen that led into my dining room, and he felt a breath on the back of his neck. I'm just going to say that I think something came through that Ouija board, which is absolutely terrifying to think about, but honestly what I'm most scared about is that all three of them in that house that night had a separate encounter. Carrie heard something whisper her name several times, the other friend heard something slam into the side of the house, and then the other friend is too terrified to even tell anybody what they saw. That's actually so terrifying. But then Carrie also sees a black shadow in the mirror's reflection. But then years later, her brother comes to live with them, and then he feels something breathe on the back of his neck. If that were me, I'd be packed up and moved out that night. No. I am so scared. Like, when I hear stories of something physically touching you that you can't see, or breathing on you, or whispering a name, no. Cut the cameras, we're done, pack it up, we're gone. But Carrie, thank you so much for sending in your story, but we would love to hear any other experiences that you've had or any updates on this. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to hear them. They can be about any scary story that you've experienced. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email that's going to be in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, I love you so much, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!
It definitely does seem like there was some kind of a little haunting situation there. I mean, the fact that she specifically saw like a dark entity running out of the bathroom, it's crazy because I had a dream the other night. I was at my old house that I lived at that I told a story about probably in my last Terrifying TikToks video, where the house cleared out. I went there to go get a package after everyone had moved out. There was nothing in the house. I made a quick lap around, took a video, and I'm standing there reviewing the video, and I hear footsteps from the back of the house when no one's there, and I booked it out of there. So I told that story in like my last Terrifying TikToks video, and I had a dream about that house the other night, and I was there with my mom, which is interesting because my mom had never been to that house before. And I was there with my mom and one of my roommates, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw like a dark figure come out of like the laundry area and run across into one of the bedrooms. And I looked over at my mom and she was like, because she saw it too and my roommate didn't. Again, this was a dream, but I literally had a dream of a dark figure running out of the laundry room the other night. That is so weird. What a coincidence. Our next TikToks with user Nokins54.
Hello, listen, I have tried to make this video multiple times today. Every single time the video has become corrupt. Either the audio was missing or I was unable to open it. So right up front, the purpose of this video, I think that I have provoked some kind of spirit, and I know it is a bold claim. I have reasoning though. For context, I live in North Georgia. I live in the lower parts of the Appalachian Mountains. Yesterday, I went climbing the mountains. Literally this one behind me. I went straight up this side, I went straight down the other side, and I found a adorable little branch. And I love branches, so I was very happy. There, I found an animal skull in the branch, which isn't too odd. I have found plenty of animal skulls before. I'm pretty sure this one was a baby raccoon, though I am not 100% sure. Here's a photo for reference. That is what I found in the... I brought it on back home. I was very excited about it. I showed it to my mom, and that is where the first odd occurrence happened. I, at the time, brushed it off as more of a coincidence, and I still kind of think it most likely was. The first odd occurrence was that when I was talking to my mom about what this animal skull may be, I dropped my phone, and the screen cracked. And I've had this phone for years and have yet to crack the screen, which I've had it for years. It was going to happen. The second odd occurrence happened hours later. So, fast forward in the day. Hours later, I went to town. I went to the park for a little bit, which I do often. By the time that I was heading home, it was already dark outside, so maybe that matters. So picture it. I am driving down the back roads of the North Georgia mountains. It is dark outside. There is no one around me. It's the back roads. This was me on the way home. And as I'm sitting there, I felt this odd energy come over me. It felt like there was someone in that car with me. My first thought was, what if somebody has somehow gotten into the vehicle? What if they got in the vehicle while I was in town, and now they are going back home with me? Alright, again, no one is around on this road, so I cannot pull over and investigate. Okay? So I just have to keep going. Okay? I did start looking in the rearview mirror, trying to see if I saw anything back there, and I did see movement multiple times. So there's movement in the back seat. I keep going straight. I keep quiet. I get all the way home. I get up my driveway. I got out of the vehicle and I looked in the back seats. No one was there. I was completely alone in the vehicle. There was no one hitching a ride with me. I still felt an odd presence. That is when I went into the house and I told my mom, I felt a spirit in the car on the way home. And she said, well, did you pray? And I said, no, but I should. So a couple more hours passed and I lay down to go to sleep. I fell asleep rather quickly, which is unlike me. However, I also think that was probably a coincidence. So, fast forward a couple more hours, and I went to bed. I went to bed rather easily, which is unlike me. However, I do think that was a coincidence. I don't think the spirit was helping me fall asleep. At exactly 4 a.m., which I know, 4 a.m. is not the spooky hour, 3 a.m. is the spooky hour. Don't know why it was 4 a.m., but at exactly 4 a.m., I woke up from a dream. A dream that I remember vividly and in detail. In the dream, I was trying to sleep in my car. I couldn't see anything outside. It was completely pitch black, as if the vehicle was in a completely black void. Nothing was around. Couldn't see an inch beyond the glass. Alright? I was trying to sleep, and the car was cranked. I put my seat back, laid down, and as I laid down, suddenly, out of nowhere, someone who I could not see quickly leaned over, grabbed the keys, and turned the vehicle off. In the dream, this kind of spooked me. I think there's a lizard beside me somewhere. In the dream, this kind of spooked me. I sat up to try and see who it was. It all happened within the span of like half a second. I ended up waking up, but I do know I was alone in the car in the dream, so I don't know who turned off the vehicle. Dreams are often odd. I often have odd dreams. When I first woke up, I didn't really think much of this. I just thought, sounds like me. Happened. It wasn't even a scary dream. It was just kind of a little bit of an odd dream. So I continue laying there, and I hear, after a couple minutes of laying there, I hear in the living room the doorknob to my door, which leads outside to the wilderness of the mountains. I hear the doorknob rattle, as if somebody's trying to open it. Alright? And I lay there, and I thought, first thought was, it's the wind. The house is settling, or I'm mishearing it. Maybe it's one of the animals in my house. I don't know what that was, but I'm gonna keep going. I laid there for a few more minutes, and then I hear it again. Very distinct rattle noise of the doorknob being pulled down, okay? As if someone's trying to open the door. The second time I thought that definitely sounds like the doorknob. It is definitely the doorknob. I still don't know for sure what it is. Maybe I'm losing my mind. It is the third time that it happens that I set up and grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. And I got up out of bed and I walked into the living room and I shined my light outside of the window of the door. Most of the door is a window. No one was there. Nothing was there. There was nothing to tamper with. Still, I locked it because I didn't think to lock it before I went to bed. No one's around me. Okay? But anyway, I locked it then, obviously. And then I go and I lay back down. exactly 3 minutes passed. Exactly 3 minutes passed when suddenly the doorknob gets rattled again, except this time so much louder and so much more distinct. Someone's trying to get through the door noise. This did freak me out a pretty good deal. Did I get up and I go in there and investigate further? It is getting so dark. No, I didn't. I remained in bed and I called my mom, who lives upstairs above me, and I told her that something is messing with my door. The odd factor is that when I went to check, I saw nobody. My mom let our pit bulls out. 3 pit bulls that stay upstairs with her. She let them outside. They ran around the holler a little bit and then they came back in. Nothing was out. I ended up getting some chocolate milk, going back to bed, a little creeped out. I made a joke to my mom beforehand where I said, what if it's the spirit of the raccoon? I doubt it's the spirit of a raccoon. I just can't see a spirit of a raccoon doing that to me. So what was it? Don't know. But too many odd things lined up. Alright? The weird dream before I woke up was weird. Obviously, I just said it was a weird dream. The fact that I felt something odd in the vehicle with me, and then I dreamt about the vehicle, and then I just so happened to wake up to somebody trying to break into my house through the door. I don't know. I think it's paranormal. And I don't know what spirit I provoked. And I don't know how I provoked it. Because I don't think it's the raccoon. So yeah, now it's too dark for me and I'm going inside. I didn't mean for me to stay out with it getting this dark. So, goodbye.
Our next TikTok with user, itsbarbielore.
The Appalachian Mountains are haunted. If this is the first video that you were ever watching about the Appalachian Mountains, you are about to go down the biggest rabbit hole ever. And if you are on the side of Appalachian TikTok, then keep listening because I have some things to say. First of all, don't come for my pronunciation. I am in the South and it's pronounced differently depending on where you are on the map. Just a little backstory. My dad grew up in South Carolina. His parents' house was technically in the Appalachian Mountains, and there was always weird stuff that happened at this house, and it wasn't until my 20s that I put the 2 and 2 together. One time I was scrolling on my phone late at night on TikTok and I came across this video of a girl and her friend who had broken down on the side of the road. Everything turned out to be okay, but they were like, thank goodness we knew the rules of the Appalachian Mountains. And I went, the rules of the Appalachian Mountains? And that's what started my TikTok spiral. So when my dad moved into this house that his parents, my grandparents, built, there were some really weird things that happened. The stories that I'm about to tell you are stories that have been passed down for years. We always knew about these stories, and as kids, we slept in this house at night, and it was just always a little eerie. The first night that the house was built and people could be inside of it, my grandfather was by himself and he heard the phone ring. They had their landline put in. I don't know what it looked like back in those times, but he picks up the phone and he's talking to whoever's on the other end, and he feels a hand press down on his shoulder. Obviously, he turns around and he's freaked out because there's nobody behind him. So that's the first story in this house that is a little bit eerie. I'll take off my earrings really quick. So then the rest of the family eventually finally moves in now that it's complete. My dad, his 2 brothers, his sister, my grandmother, everybody. So then the weird footsteps start happening. So the house is like a 2-level. It's not like a 2-story, but it's like a main level, and then it has a basement with not a basement, it has windows and everything, but that's where all the kids sleep. So there's this long hallway across that gets to the master bedroom where they are, and then underneath where all the kids are. My dad has a couple of his friends over. He's like a little kid, and they're down in the basement, where all the bedrooms are, and they hear this heavy walking across the hallway, with heavy boots. And at first they're like, are these people that have been working on the house, or who's here? Basically, they were like, what the heck? And then they walk upstairs and it's obviously nobody. And I remember my dad actually called, I don't know why his parents were out that night, but he called his dad, my grandpa, to see if they could come back and come back early because they were so freaked out. So that's the kids hearing things. But then everyone starts hearing the same heavy walking down the hallway at different times, like of the week, month. Like everyone experiences this walking, heavy walking across the floor, even when they know that they're like at the house alone and there's no one upstairs. One time my dad is there by himself again, and this is common because his older siblings are like at least 10 years older, so they're like dating and stuff. So he hears like rustling downstairs, like moving around of like papers and like all this kind of stuff, and he's like, oh, my brother is going to play a prank on me, like he's gonna sneak up on me. So he like walks towards the bedroom, like ready to be like, ha, gotcha. And as he approaches the room that he hears it from, which I guess was his bedroom, it stops, and he walks into the bedroom and there's no one in there. My grandmother actually said that there was one time when she heard this heavy walking across the floor, like I explained, and she was by herself, and she was so scared that she walked up the stairs with a baseball bat. So not only are the kids hearing this, the adults are hearing this too. So these are the stories that I grew up hearing, and so when I go down this TikTok rabbit hole and I hear about the rules of the Appalachian Mountains, I look them up and I'm like, what? So let me see if I can get them all correctly, and y'all can, you know, fact check me, and if I'm missing or saying them wrong, then please tell me. So the rules were: don't whistle in the woods. If you hear something, no you didn't. If you hear something close to you, it's far away. If you hear something far away, then it's actually closer to you. And always to stay on the marked trail, never leave the marked trail, and don't look too deep into the woods because you might not like what you see. I'm someone that enjoys looking into these kinds of things, and obviously you can tell by the kind of content that I produce that I enjoy kind of like the weird side of the world and the internet. And so I just go down Appalachian Talk and I'm just like, I'm thinking about these stories that I've grown up hearing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the woods are haunted. Like, obviously. And I like to know like the history of things, like these kind of superstitions and rules and things they weren't taken lightly. Like way back, you know, in the 1800s, 1700s, these were things that people believed and they took very seriously. These were real things that people experienced. They held them sacred. And also, as beautiful and as amazing as these mountains are, when you're there at night, there's like a different vibe that like I can't really put my finger on. It's just there's just like this, the darkness is just so thick. Like it's a very creepy place. So if this is your first time hearing about the Appalachian Mountains being haunted, what are the things that people see? What are the things that people experience? Okay, we're gonna go into that next. People claim that, you know, people take mimics. That's another big thing that people experience in the Appalachian Mountains, where they hear their name being called by a voice that they recognize, but that person isn't home. They see someone that they recognize, but it's not that person because that person's not even in that city. That's very common. Cryptids like Bigfoot, Mothman, and then just like beastly like creatures. Like when I did my research, there's a lot of trail cam footages of these people, entities, I guess. I mean, these stories are years and years and years and years of people's superstitions and experiences. So like I almost feel like it's kind of like small-minded of me to just be like, nope, none of it exists. So we are in the Appalachian Mountains this weekend, and every time I come up here, I love the mountains for what they are, but then when we're here at night, there's just like a different vibe and it just feels so eerie. And so I was like, well, I definitely have to come on and talk about it. I can't really talk and do mascara, so just a quick mascara break. Went and got my outfit on. Y'all, look at this romper. It's so cute. Okay, we're in the Appalachian Mountains this weekend, and I just can't help but think about all the stories and the Appalachian Talk, and I want to know your thoughts, and I'll let you know if anything weird happens while we're here. Not like anything will, but I don't know how I went 28 years without knowing any of this, but you never know. You know, you learn things new every single day. Okay, take this out of my hair. So y'all leave me your thoughts. I want to know your stories. I want to know your thoughts and opinions on this topic. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Our next TikTok's with the user, Church of Chelsea.
I have filmed this video 3 times and it just will not let me post, but the craziest things have been happening and I'm going to tell you about it. So I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains, so far off the grid that sometimes I would be in areas where people did not even have running water or electricity, and because of that I would have to navigate to their homes with the use of like a map and like a compass in my car. Now I usually say that my stories are changed for the sake of HIPAA and for the sake of storytelling, but this story takes place at my house, so that doesn't really apply here. Now I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, and it's absolutely insane, but like a week ago I'm getting ready to go out of town, okay, and in preparation for leaving, I need to get hay for the horses. So I take my horse trailer to my hay guy, I get a round bale, I come home. Now, when I'm trying to disconnect the trailer from my truck, I cannot get the jack of the trailer to pick the trailer up high enough so it's off like my ball, like the hitch, the trailer hitch, right? So because I'm lazy and I'm frustrated and I'm tired and I have so much else to do before I leave town, I pull the pin on my trailer ball, like my trailer hitch, and I drive the truck away. Now my thought is the hitch ball is just going to fall into the driveway, onto the gravel driveway, and I'll find it later, right? Like, makes sense. But I had left the property to go run errands, and I came back to find the trailer ball, or the trailer hitch where I thought it would be, and it's not there. Now, for some reference, this is important. My driveway is huge. I have like a big horseshoe driveway in the front, which is great for turning around my horse trailer, and then the driveway basically connects to a gravel road that goes all the way to the back of our property, and then it enters the woods, becomes a smaller road, like a dirt road, and there's like an area like where you can drive like a car or like a go-kart, or like I'll drive my horses, and my chicken coop is back there. Amazing. My TV's just turning on by itself. Fantastic. So much going on right now. So I park my trailer right at the entrance of the woods, right next to the electric horse fence, okay? And so I am searching the gravel driveway. I'm even searching the entrance to the woods for my trailer ball hitch. Cannot find it. So I tell my husband, I can't find my trailer hitch. Like, have you seen it? And he's like, no, but why would you drive away without looking to see if it fell in the driveway? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't think that. I just expected it to fall in the driveway. So he comes outside and he checks the yard. He checks the driveway. He checks the farm. He checks the dirt road. We can't find it. So he's like, you know what? You probably didn't have it come away from your truck all the way before you left the house. So it probably fell off somewhere like on the road. And he's like, that's very dangerous. You could hurt another driver. You could bust someone's windshield. He's like, and also that hitch ball was very expensive. So that was a very costly mistake and a very dangerous mistake. And now my husband's a very, very sweet, calm man towards me. And so I know this is bad, right? Like, I didn't think this through enough before I did it. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I really wish now that I could just find this trailer hitch ball so I know that I didn't hurt anybody, because now I am stressed. Now, in the meantime, I did have to borrow my friend's trailer hitch just to move a few more things before I had to leave for vacation. So I did have her trailer hitch ball, and she was feeding my horses when I was leaving, so I threw her trailer hitch ball into my barn with the pin in case she needed it while I was gone. So all this happens, can't find my trailer hitch ball, and I'm leaving for West Virginia. The plan is to meet my girlfriends in West Virginia. We're going to take my friend's car to the airport, okay? And my truck is going to stay on her farm. So I throw my duffel bag in the back of my truck, like 4 a.m. Thursday morning or whatever, and I leave the house. That road that I posted in my last video with like the trees and I said fun date idea, let's like stand in the road, whistle and run, that's the road leading up to her farm. So it's like an area, it's like a farm in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia. You drive up to the house, you're parking on the farm, and all around it is woods, and her farm is just connected to like another 2,000 acres, and there's nothing there. Like it's nothing. People horseback ride on the property, they hunt on the property, but nothing is there, okay? So I'm in the middle of nowhere. My truck sits there from the time I park it there Thursday until we get back on Sunday, okay? So we get back on Sunday, I get in my truck, and I drive back home to Ohio, all right? And when I get home, I'm pulling my duffel bag out of the back of the truck, and my husband comes to say hi to me because I'm just coming back from my little girls' weekend. And he goes, I'm closing my tailgate, and he goes, oh, you found your hitch ball. And I'm like, no, I didn't find my hitch ball. That's Erica's. And then I realized, no, it's not, because I left Erica's in the barn so she could grab it when she came over to feed the horses. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know, I didn't. And he looks and he goes, that's your hitch ball, you found it. And I'm like, no, I did not find it. And I said, did you put it on there? Did you put my hitch ball on there? And he goes, no, why would I put it on there? You've been gone. And I said, well, did you put it on before I left? And he goes, no, remember, I couldn't find it. Which is true. He tried to find it, I tried to find it, we couldn't find it. So I'm looking to make sure it's not my friend Erica's, and my friend Erica's is in my barn. Just the hitch. No pin, just her hitch. And I'm looking at the hitch that's on my truck, and it is my trailer ball hitch that I always use, that I lost, with the pin in it, which is just not possible because my truck has been parked on a farm in West Virginia for the past 4 days, and the pin has been in my barn in Ohio, and I lost the trailer hitch. So how did I show up back home in Ohio with the trailer ball hitch that I lost and the pin that was in my barn? I am like I cannot figure it out. And at first I was like, well, maybe I'm just so tired and so exhausted because I'm running around 24/7 with, my 2 jobs and my kids and my farm. Maybe I put it on there myself. No, I didn't. I left Ohio without it because I couldn't find it. And I was thinking of what a bummer it was that I lost it because it was expensive, and I was so worried that someone might have hit it on the road and it trashed their car. So I know I didn't find it. And I asked my friend Mindy, I'm like, hey, who was at the farm while we were gone? The only person at the farm while we were gone was the dude that feeds the animals. And I don't know him, and he doesn't know me. We have never met. And he went up twice a day to feed the animals. Other than that, my truck was in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia. No one drove it. No one was there. And the pin was not there. I have no idea. What did Wendigo show up in my woods, steal my trailer hitch when it fell off my trailer, and then transport it to West Virginia and be like, let me put this bitch's ball back on? I don't understand. I don't know how it got there. Thoughts? Ideas? I can't explain it. I cannot explain it. But good news is I have my trailer hitch back. Bad news is it is haunting me, and I cannot figure out how the hell it ended up back in my truck or where it was. So that's that. Oh, and Anna, the house ghost, just turned on the news for you. So
I don't know how you explain this. Different state, it reappears on her truck. I don't really know the logistics of how those things work because I've never had a car like that or a truck or anything like that. So I don't know the exact logistics, but she explained it well enough that I can understand that that shouldn't have happened. How do you explain something from, she's out of town and, it goes from one state to the other, back on her truck? That just doesn't make sense to me. It's also, I don't know, it's such a random thing. It's maybe it could be a glitch in the Matrix. Maybe it's paranormal. I don't know. What do you guys think? Our next TikToks by the user is Savannah Lee 32796.
Story time of my haunted childhood home in the Appalachian Mountains.
Very historical town. The Battle of the Cowpens took place here. If you don't know about it, Google it. So the house that I grew up in, my grandparents built, extremely haunted. This was probably the most scariest thing that ever happened to me in that home, paranormal wise. Yeah. And I had a lot of things happen to me, things being thrown at me and shit before, and this was nothing tops this, okay? Nothing tops even the little girl that looked like the little girl from the Ring movie. Nothing tops this, okay? So I'm laying in the bed. I'm 8 years old. My 2 sisters were at work. They worked at a haunted trail called Wampus Woods at the time. We had a cat. She would sleep in our walk-in closets.
and I thought that she was asleep in the closet door because I heard the closet door start to creak open. She did not come when I called her. So then I heard it creaking open even more, and then I called her again. She still didn't come. So then the closet door flung the fuck open. This fucking man steps out of the closet, okay? A shadow of a man steps out of the closet. He has like a top hat on. My God, even when I talk about this, it just, ugh. So he steps out of the fucking closet, okay? I can clearly tell this is a man. I'm tripping the fuck out. I was like frozen for a second. He walks over to the side of the bed and he like leans down and he's staring at me. I could feel him like stare like so fuck close to me. I wedged myself all the way over to the edge of the bed. And keep in mind, I'm 8 years old, okay? I'm 8. We had been playing the Ouija board for 2 years at this point, roughly. So we opened something up with that Ouija board, and I'm telling you, like, so much shit started happening after this. The house was always had shit going on. But this shit the Ouija board made it so much worse because we were so young. We did not know what the fuck we were doing. Keep in mind, I'm 29, almost 30 years old this March. So do not come for me about a Ouija board, okay? I don't want to fucking hear it because I know. I started praying. I wedged myself between the wall. Okay, I have every fucking cover, blanket, anything over the sheets, everything, even the fitted sheet is pulled off, and I'm wrapped up in that shit, wedged, laying on the box screen, beside the mattress and the wall, like as far as I could get, and I'm literally just hiding because I'm terrified. And I'm screaming to the top of my lungs. My grandparents are downstairs. My Nana and my Papa are both downstairs, and my brother Bubba is downstairs, my brother Carl. No one heard me. Nobody heard me. So I don't know how long I laid there and just pure terror because I literally did not know it felt like somebody was in the fucking room with me, a human or something. It was so, I couldn't move. I was petrified. I could not get up to get out of that fucking room to save my life. I was so scared. Now, when you work in Wampus Woods, you work late. My sisters got home. My older sister that I shared a room with, Carly, she is so fucking OCD, okay? So, especially when we were younger, she was very OCD. And she comes home and she flips the light on and she's like, what the fuck, Savannah? Because the wind machine fans knocked over, the closet doors flung the fuck open. I mean, like, the whole bedding is just fucked up. I'm crying, freaking the fuck out, and I start telling her what happened. Of course, my siblings were the only ones that believed me, and I'm sure that my grandparents maybe believed me, but they never wanted to admit that there was anything going on in the home, I guess, to keep us, so we weren't more afraid than what we were. But yeah, that was the scariest thing that happened to me, for sure. And I have so many of these stories, but that really was the one thing that scared the absolute fucking shit out of me.
I know she said not to say it, but I have to. Don't play with Ouija boards. I mean, seriously, do not make that mistake. If you are not prepared to deal with the potential consequences, do not play with Ouija boards. Our next TikTok spooky user, the Quirky Anarchist.
So I'm going to tell y'all a story about something I saw when my grandfather was dying. He was on hospice at home. At the point that this happened, it was the day before he died. He had been non-responsive for a while. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Me, my oldest daughter, who was 20 at the time, and our cousin, who was also 20, were up in the living room talking. And it being 3 a.m., obviously everybody else in the house was asleep. It was very quiet. And out of nowhere, I had this feeling that I needed to go and check on my grandfather. And every second that I didn't get up and go, that thought would get louder and louder and louder in my head to where it was like, you need to go now, now, now. So finally I got up and took off. And when I did, my daughter hopped up too. And she said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to check Papa. So we go down the hall to his bedroom. Now, in my grandparents' house, my grandfather's bedroom, the furnace runs up behind the wall of his bedroom. So that room is always extremely hot. It's much hotter than the rest of the house. So when I opened his bedroom door, I expected it to be pretty warm. Well, the air that rushed out when I pushed the door open was like 10 or 15 degrees colder than the hallway. And that was already odd. Well, I went to look towards his hospice bed, and there was something standing there, like leaned over his head. It looked to be about 6 foot tall, but instead of being shaped like a person, it was like wiggly. I don't really know how to describe it. And it was all black, like a shadow, but you could see through it. But when it would move, you could see the shadows move like body parts. So when I saw it, I went, and when I did, where it was like leaned over his head, where its head would have been, went and turned towards me. And it disappeared. Well, as soon as it disappeared, the temperature went back up. And I'm standing there frozen in shock. And then I realized my daughter was standing right behind me. Now, all I had said was, but when I turned around, my daughter looked absolutely terrified. And she looked at me and she said, "Mom, what the fuck was that?" So we both saw it. And we spent weeks trying to figure out what that was, because my grandfather died the next day. His death was very peaceful despite that, but there was something off about this thing. And about 3 months after this, my grandmother also got deathly ill. And my daughter had come home from college to stay with her. And the second night she was home at 3 a.m., my daughter texted me and said, "Mom, that thing is back. It is standing in the hallway."
I love that she followed her like immediate gut feeling and went to go check on him. I don't know, it seems like it was something preparing to take him over to the other side. It does not seem like a coincidence, the timing there. And then I find it concerning that this thing is seen by the grandma later on. Like, it just, that would freak me out too much. I would be like, oh dear God, it's coming for her too. The whole situation does not seem like a coincidence, and I've heard multiple stories, similar stories, where people are seeing this kind of entity hovering over their loved ones shortly before they pass. And I don't know if you want to take it as like a negative thing, like death coming to collect, or if you want to take it as like maybe something preparing to guide them over to the other side so they're not alone when they make the transition. You think what you want, but it definitely is not a coincidence to me. Our next TikToks with user, DevinXOXO.
Y'all ever called the cops on a ghost? So I have now. I don't really know what else you would call it. Okay, so I will tell you this story. I was in a wedding this past weekend, and this wedding was in Tennessee, okay? And it was along the Appalachian Trail. I used to live in North Georgia, and I know a thing or two about the Appalachian Trail. The main thing that I know about it is you don't mess with it, okay? If it talks to you, no it didn't, turn right around. If you hear a whistle, no you didn't, turn right around. I don't mess with that, and I moved away happily from the drama that is another realm that is circling on up in there. Anyway, I'm at this wedding, and we check into our Airbnb. We get there the night of the rehearsal dinner, and of course we travel with our whole zoo, so I've got 3 dogs. I've got 3 dogs with us. And we check into the Airbnb, and immediately I go into the main bedroom to put our stuff down, and I'm like, I don't like it. And I told Sebastian, I'm like, I don't want to stay in this room. Can we stay in the other room? And he's like, the kids' room? Yes. Something in this room is wrong. We stay in the other room, and then we jet on over to the rehearsal dinner. By the time we get back that night, we're exhausted. We know we have to be up. I got early in the morning with the bridesmaids. So we crash. Now, it's important to note that because we stayed in the kids' bedroom, when you walk out of that kids' bedroom, there's like 2 living rooms and then the kitchen, but you can see all the way through to the kitchen. Dogs are in crates in that second living room. So I come out of the bedroom to go to the bathroom, and I look into the kitchen, and there I see it. There is a grown man standing in my Airbnb at the counter. This guy's big, okay? Now ask yourself, what do you do in that moment? Freeze, and I'm checking all the things. Am I asleep? Am I dreaming? Let me fixate my eyes. What am I seeing right now? No, I see, clear as day, a grown man standing at the counter, and I'm like, someone broke into the Airbnb. I watch a lot of true crime. Okay, I was prepared for this. I locked the doors. I wedged the chairs. This is an important note. I wedged the kitchen chairs up under the doors leading to the outside. Staring at this man with his back to me. And my dog, Crouton, locks in and sees what I see. And he starts his little, okay, well, time is limited. He's about to turn around. So my choice is either to lunge into the room in front of me and undo the crate and get my German Shepherd to eat this man. Or there's a banister right here by the fireplace and the bedroom. So I duck right back here. So as I duck behind this banister, there's like a vase. So the wall and the vase, and I'm behind it, but I can kind of see into the kitchen while this vase is like covered. I got one eyeball on him, okay? My dog is still like, I close the door ever so quietly and I flip the lights on and I'm like, Sebastian, get up. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, there is somebody in our kitchen. There's somebody in our kitchen. Holding the door, and I grab my phone and I'm like, I'm just gonna call 911. This is not my house. This is an Airbnb that somebody has broken into. And my dogs are out there. So I call the cops and I'm like, I'm at the Airbnb, track my location. Somebody broke into our Airbnb. I don't know who this person is, and I don't know if they're dangerous or they're mentally stable. I don't know. Y'all gotta come in here and handle this. So as I'm on the phone with the cops, I'm like, this is such a wild way to die. I would hate to be murdered at an Airbnb. I'm here for bridesmaids duty, not policeman duty. The only thing that I will be policing is the bride's tequila shots, okay? That's what I'm here for. So longer story short, 3 minutes feels like half an hour. The cops get there. The door that we have to let them in is right outside this bedroom door. So Sebastian's like, okay, let me go and we'll get him in here fast. Opens the door, pulls the chair out from under the door, unlocks it, lets the cops in. Now I've got 4 cops surveilling this Airbnb. We can't find him. This man was large, okay? And we can't find him. So that's when I noticed that in the kitchen, the only other door leading to the outside also still has the chair wedged under it. Meaning that nobody could have broken inside and then broken back out and leaned the chair up under, you know what I'm saying? You couldn't do that from the outside. So he is nowhere to be found. And I'm sure that I look crazy to these police officers who at this point find out that we don't live there. It's an Airbnb, and they skedaddled. They ran out of there like an old Cartoon Network scene. I'm just in this house convinced. I'm like, Sebastian, there's no way someone left. There's no way somebody left. They are still in here. There's nothing. There's no attic. There's no floorboards. I pulled out every book of a bookshelf. Nothing turned around. I don't know where this person came from. I opened every cabinet. I looked in the oven. This person disappeared. To call that other than a mimic or something like that. I walked out and maybe it didn't see me or it did. I don't know what the situation was. What I can tell you is I did not go back to bed. That bridesmaid's morning started 4 a.m. for me. I was not going back to sleep at all. And then here's the thing. After the wedding the next night, I'm like, well, I have a choice to make. Do I either stay in this Airbnb the second night or do I just drive home? More things that happen, the lights would randomly just turn off and on. The TV would turn itself off and on. The oven and dishwasher door flew open. So there were other things that were weird too. But those were the main ones. So yeah, just wondering, guys, have you too ever accidentally called the cops on a ghost? My mom used to say if it was a snake, it'd bitch you. Yeah, well, if it was a murderer, I'd be dead because I did not move fast enough. I did not.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think she could have done anything differently because, you see a random man in your Airbnb that you know is obviously not supposed to be there because you're renting it out. Duh, you're gonna call the cops. I don't know what else you do in that situation. How are you supposed to know it's haunted before you make the call, before the guy disappears? You're not expecting a man to be in a place. And you hear so many stories about if there's a lock code on the door that sometimes people can break back in after their stay because some Airbnb hosts don't change the code so you can get back in and sneak up on the current tenants there. So how is she supposed to know that it was a ghost and not maybe a situation like that, or just someone breaking in and trying to steal things. So I do not blame her for calling the police in that situation, because how do you know it's not someone breaking into your apartment or your Airbnb? I mean, I probably would have been a little embarrassed afterwards, but seriously, like, yeah, you see someone who's in your house that shouldn't be, you call the police. Our next TikToks with user Hey62.
Hi guys, I'm going to tell you some creepy things that have personally happened to me while living in the Appalachian Mountains. So, my family cemetery is across the road from my parents' house, but they own all the property, and it's pretty close to their house. And when my grandfather passed away and he was buried up there, every night there would be like a flickering light up around his grave, and there was no lights up there, like no solar lights, nothing like that. And it happened for a couple years, and then eventually it stopped, but it always happened at the same time every night. So, kind of creepy. At my parents' house, they had wooden rocking chairs outside on the porch, and they rock by themselves sometimes at night. Also, my parents, they built a log cabin, and that's where I grew up. And log cabins, whenever there's temperature changes, the logs constantly expand and contract. So we're assuming this is what it was, but one night, it was late at night and we was all asleep, and there's just constant like thumping outside of the house. Like, it was so loud, it was deafening, and it was probably one of the scariest things because we honestly have no idea what it was, but I couldn't even describe the sound because it was so creepy. And the only thing we could think of is it was probably the logs expanding and contracting because it was really, really cold. It was actually came an ice storm, so that's what we think it was. A few years ago, a distant family member passed away, but they lived up the same holler that I used to live up, and the moment that they took their last breath, the power went off in the whole holler.
Our next TikTok is with user Soft Taco.
My family lives near the Appalachian Trail, and I've lived near the Appalachian Trail for nearly my entire life in three different states I've lived almost really close to the Appalachian Trail. And people are always talking about how beautiful the trail is itself, like how tranquil it is and whatever. And my husband, who moved from Brazil, had never been there before, so we naturally decided to go camping there one time. I don't know if you're like familiar with Appalachia or anything, but once you step into those woods, like you can feel a significant change in the atmosphere. Like, the energy just gets way more heavy, and it's just weird. It feels off. You know that feeling in your gut when you just like know something's off? That's kind of how I was feeling the entire time that we were on the trail, but my husband was having a grand old time, and so I just pushed on. I was like, you know, he's having a great time. He's never been out in these types of woods before. We're just gonna keep going. Whatever, we hiked on, and then we finally found our little camping spot, and when we did set up our camping spot, that's when I noticed that the sounds in the forest had stopped. And if you know anything about the woods, that is not a good sign. We set up our camping spot anyways. I kind of glanced over at my husband to see if he was picking up on what the energy was around the woods, and he totally was too, but he didn't say anything about it, and we just kind of pressed on. Surprisingly though, we were able to fall asleep in our tent. Like, the beginning of the night was fine, other than the uneasy feeling that we both kind of had. But I want to say it was around midnight when we started to hear the sounds of footsteps outside of our tent. And if you are like an avid camper, you know that like footsteps outside of your tent is like usually just an animal. However, you can always tell when it's an animal walking on four legs versus two. If you know what I mean? So when we heard the footsteps, we froze and we listened, and we were like, yo, this is not the sound of an animal. Like, we could hear like kind of this low guttural growling that didn't sound like a bear. It didn't sound like any kind of animal that we've ever heard of before. Kind of like it wasn't a human, but it also wasn't quite animal, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? I don't know what to tell you. It just sounded wrong. So my husband, being the big bad Brazilian that he is, he unzipped the tent and stuck his head out. Whatever he saw had him so damn shook that he muckled onto my arm so hard, and he said, "Don't move. Don't move." He was like, "Don't look, don't look, don't look, don't move, don't look." And of course I looked. And what I saw has absolutely deterred me from going camping on the Appalachian Trail since. It was like this tall, pale, kind of like too thin to be a man type figure. Its arms were really gangly, like they were too long for its body. Mind you, I couldn't see it very clearly, okay, so I'm just like kind of telling you what the outline of what I saw looked like. I could tell that its head was kind of cocked to the side, like something does when it's kind of studying you, you know, like an animal or like something curious. It's like, and although I couldn't see its figure completely, I did see its glowing, creepy looking eyes. They looked like the glowing eyes of an animal off in the woods, but you know, they were like up too high to be an animal. It looked like a person, but somebody who's too tall to be a person, but they were standing like a man. Does that make sense to you? I don't really know how to explain it, but my mind knows what it looks like. We stayed locked in place, barely breathing, clutching onto each other, shaking. My chest felt like it was going to explode from holding everything in, like the anticipation was absolutely crazy. Was this thing going to run at our tent? What was this thing going to do? Every instinct in my body told me to scream and run away, but both of those things in Appalachia are an absolute no-no. Those types of creatures love a good chase. Number one rule in Appalachia is if you've seen something, no you didn't. If you've heard something, no the fuck you didn't. And if you ever see something, you're supposed to just back away slowly, not pay attention. I didn't see anything. I'm just gonna go back to my car. But anyway, after what seemed like forever, this thing finally stopped staring into our souls, dropped on all fours, and then skittered into the woods as fast as it could. When I say fast, like it was like there, and then it wasn't. Like, yeah, we didn't go investigate, obviously. We hunkered down in our tent, and we didn't move or sleep for the rest of the night. And as soon as the sky turned even the lightest bit of gray, we sprung into action and tore up our whole entire campsite and left as soon as we could. I've heard so many other stories of creepy things happening to people on the Appalachian Trail, so honestly, it just kind of seems like a thing that happens when you go there, which makes sense. I mean, those are the oldest mountains in America. They have a lot of history, a lot of creatures that we refuse to acknowledge. So if you ever decide to go to Appalachia, do not forget the rules of the woods.
Our next TikToks for the user, mad.mad.madelyn.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again. So, it's ran into this video on here, and it's talking about this couple who is renovating a house in the Appalachian Mountains. Or do you say it Appalachian Mountains? I say Appalachian Mountains. And you kind of got to throw some twang in there, don't you? Right? I mean, okay, anyways, I'm sorry. And I was just like, oh my God, because I'm a sucker for old houses. I love old houses. I would love to do that, but fuck that area, dude. So I decided I wanted to just do a little story time and tell you guys about my experience in the Appalachian Mountains. So anyways, we're going there not by choice for me, because I didn't even realize we were going there. I was with my boyfriend. We were on a trip. We're going to visit his friend. And then he's like, yeah, we were in North Carolina. He's like, we're going to go over the border here into Virginia. And then I see this sign that says like, oh yeah, you're now entering the Appalachian Mountains. And I was like, bro, what the fuck? No. And I was like, you realize, dude, that like I've had like this obsession with this place. It's like not good. Like an obsession of like how the fuck I'm never going to visit this place. Like listen to so many podcasts, blurry creatures, TikToks, just everything. Like everything that there is scary to know about this area. Like I have fully invested my time into researching it, reading about it, listening to podcasts, videos. So you get the drill. And I'm like, maybe it's just not that scary, you know, like it's not that serious. I'm trying to talk myself out of like being scared, obviously. So we get there and his friend has this big, beautiful brick house on this hill, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. That's one thing I can say about the East Coast, or at least North Carolina and Virginia where I was. The homes are gorgeous. Like they actually have character to them. So at first I was like feeling semi okay. I definitely do think that I'm someone who is really sensitive to the spirit realm. So I'm like, it's not that bad right here. Like I think that everything is going to be fine. And then we get into this guy's house, and then I'm starting to like, I can feel the panic like rising up in my chest. Like I can feel something is off. And mind you, at this moment, the sun is starting to set outside. Anyways, we all hang out. I had a lot of anxiety like the whole evening, but I'm just trying to push through so that my boyfriend can see his best friend. Okay, fast forward in the evening, we're getting ready to go to bed. His best friend's like, you guys can sleep in this room. And it turns out that it's his daughter's bedroom. She's like probably 5 years old. And I'm in the room and I'm like unpacking some of my stuff, just like going through my suitcase, whatever. And this little girl comes up to me and she's like dead serious, dude. This is what killed me about this area. So she's like, you do not want to look out the windows at nighttime here. And I'm like, oh, really? Why is that? And then she's like, again, so serious. She's like, there's a man that stands outside my window and sometimes he'll scratch on the window too. And I do my best to not show her like how freaked out I am. And then she's like, and sometimes I see red eyes too if I look out the window out there. And she's like, and there's just always a lot of scary noises outside. And I was just like, oh, well, thank you for letting me know that. That was so kind of you. And I was like, maybe you should go see your mom real quick or whatever. So I shut the door and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like freaking the fuck out, dude. Like just freaking out. Okay, so I'm like freaking out and I'm trying to like close all the blinds in the room and the curtain, and it doesn't help that there's like a couple pieces on the blinds that are broken. And I'm like, great, this motherfucker's gonna be able to look through the window, like regardless. So I was just like, I'm gonna do what I always do. Whenever I stay somewhere that I think is haunted, I fucking drug myself, dude. Like I probably will take so much melatonin that I go into a coma. Like, so that's what I did. I took like probably 20 milligrams of melatonin, and made it so that I would pass out completely. Like I'm not waking up to crap. And this guy can, if he's real or not. I mean, I believe little kids when they say this stuff because like she's 5 and kids are more open and susceptible to the spirit realm as well. So like why, I mean, maybe she was funny and wanted to freak me out. I don't know, but I don't think so, dude. So anyways, I take this melatonin. It does take me like forever to fall asleep, but I still fell asleep and I didn't hear shit all night because I don't even think I woke up once to go pee. But we got the fuck out of there in the morning, like so quick. And, yeah, so that was my experience that was my experience in the Appalachian Mountains. And it wasn't that big. It wasn't that significant. But I'm not ever testing it again. Ever.
When a little kid just like comes up to you and nonchalantly says something like that, believe them, because they can see things that we can't. They're more in tune with things because I guess they're closer to not the other side, but the original side, if that makes sense. I feel like they're a lot more in tune with spirituality, and they're not like jaded where they don't believe in as many things, so they're more open to it. And I think things show themselves to them a lot more often. But like that doesn't bode well because that's pretty terrifying, and you realize that they're probably telling the truth, and now you have to worry about something staring in the window at you in the Appalachian Mountains. Our next talks with user Liza1123.
I have a scary Appalachian Mountains story for you. So my family we have a cabin up in the Appalachian Mountains, literally in the middle of nowhere. Like, yes, it's in a little town, but in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's very random. So, surprisingly, not much has happened. But honestly, I didn't even know, like, we were in the Appalachian Mountains for a very long time until, like, a few months ago. And then I realized, oh, like, I do have some weird things that have happened. One of those stories is just hearing a woman in the woods screaming, which everybody says never follow that, never go towards that, don't answer, nothing. I remember just sitting out by the fire outside and surrounded by woods and just hearing a woman screaming at the top of her lungs. Now, some people, there's a certain kind of cat that does that, and I remember my parents just being like, it's probably that I don't know if it was that. Sounded like a woman screaming for her life. Also, just being able to hear, like, and when it's silent at night, just hearing footsteps running through the woods, through the leaves, and then sounding like they're stopping and just watching you. That's scary. Also, I'm in a parking lot that is empty at night right now. So, it's a little bit scary. Okay, but the weirdest story. So, we have a boat. It's kind of like a lake house, near a lake. And one day, we went out on the boat, my entire family. And so the way the house is set up, there's, the main floor you walk in. There's a loft, which is an open upstairs, and then a downstairs, which has a few bedrooms, living room, that type of thing. And there's a door to like an outside, like downstairs patio type thing, which like looks straight into the woods. So we have 2 dogs, my family. We always take the downstairs area, and we always have made sure that that door is shut and both locks are locked. And it's hard to not have it shut and locked, and it's hard to open. Like, you have to yank it. And the lock, you kind of have to, like, it's old, so you have to really work hard, I guess. And so we were coming back, driving up the hill, and I look over. Good thing I looked over, and I see my dog. And I'm like, stop the car. That's our dog. And then the other dog comes running, and the dogs were loose. They were out. And so my brother was freaking out. And we were freaking out. We were like, what is happening? Like, how did that even happen? Did somebody break in? So we got the dogs in the car and went back, and we went and checked it out. The door was wide open. And by the way, not windy at all that day. Like, nothing like that. The door was wide open and the dogs were loose, and this had to have been recent because we were just coming back. They could have ran away, like, been gone. So I don't know. I was younger, so I don't know if my parents or anyone checked around the house for somebody being in there, but I don't think that could just happen. But I really, surprisingly, don't have many stories. Like, I know my family does, so I could ask them and make a part 2. But yeah, I actually really want to make a series of like reading scary stories, because I fall asleep to those every single night. So let me know.
Our next TikTok's with user CLV0090.
What's really in the Appalachian Mountains? It's time for another Sunday Scary, and if you're new here, I grew up smack dab in the middle of Appalachia, and I've got scary stories for days. This story is about 5 years ago when we were outside and there's something in the woods. But I don't know what it was, and I really can't explain it away. So let me set the scene for you. We are outside. It is the middle of the night. And hear me out. I know that the rules of Appalachia say in the middle of the night you basically can't be outside, but we were outside on someone's back porch, and this porch stood off the ground. I'm talking the back patio was at least a good 6 to 7 feet off the ground and enclosed in. There was no way to get off this patio and no way to get on the patio. But the patio did back up into the middle of the woods. It was spring. It was a beautiful night outside, and we're all sitting outside just talking. I was home visiting, and we're just shooting shit at this point. I can't even remember what the conversation was, but it wasn't scary. It wasn't creepy. Like, nobody was freaking out. The vibes were okay. All of a sudden, it gets eerily quiet. I'm talking about you don't hear birds, you don't hear bugs, you don't hear the wind rustling anymore. It is super, super duper quiet. So we stop talking and we're just looking around at each other thinking, is this normal? Like, do you hear what I'm hearing? What's going on? And then I hear what I can only explain is almost like a high-pitched scream, like a woman is screaming in terror, or a small infant. I'm talking about a super tiny baby. You know, like the newborn babies have that certain cry about them. We just hear this like high-pitched cry. And to be honest with you, it didn't freak me out at first, because if you've been anywhere in the mountains, not just Appalachia, if you're outside at night, there are certain mountain lions, cats that make a noise that is so similar to a woman screaming that it really didn't strike me as odd, but it was loud. And again, we are up off the ground. Nothing can get to us. There's no gate. There's nothing. There's no way to get up to this back porch. And we just look at each other, and I remember making a joke that was like, I hope that's not a baby, or I hope that's not an infant crying, like it's something trying to get us to go in the woods and look for it. And if you've heard any of the Appalachian lore, you know you're not supposed to go in the woods. And trust me, we weren't going to, but I'd cracked a little joke. And maybe I shouldn't have cracked a joke in the middle of the woods now that I think back about it. Anyways, again, it doesn't freak anybody out, so we're just talking. Nothing can get to us, right? So we hear rustling in the woods, almost like something is walking on 2 feet, but they're dragging their feet, right? And it's springtime, so there's still dead leaves around, yada, 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 but it's like a dragging, walking sound. But again, we're in the middle of the woods, and like, why wouldn't you think that something's not walking around in the woods, an animal or whatever? So we're fine. We're kind of laughing, a little nervous at this point. But then all of a sudden we hear knocks, like something's knocking on a tree trunk. So like, imagine just hearing, and that knock sounded very distant in the woods. And again, we're writing it off to some animals or something, like whatever. We're laughing. I don't think I'm laughing at this point, actually. I'm like, I'm the closest to the door, so I'm just watching the door. We're alert at this point, and we look at each other. We're like, did you hear this random knocking? And of course, we're having conversation, and as soon as we stop talking about it and we write it off to something rustling in the woods, squirrels, what have you, the knocking happens again. Except this time it's the classic 3 loud knocks, and it is so close to us. I mean, I feel like it is literally right in front of my face. Needless to say, we stood up and we all walked inside, and we stopped talking about it. We stopped playing it off. We literally all in tandem stood up together and just filed inside. So what was trying to get our attention? Could it have been an animal at first, and then we got a little spooked, and then those knocks were a little something more supernatural? Is it all just a coincidence, and it just so happens that I'm in the Appalachian Mountains, and every time I hear something, I now consider it to be something supernatural and super spooky? I can tell you one thing, my friends and I, we didn't sit around long enough to figure it out. And that's not the only thing creepy that's ever happened outside in the middle of the woods. In fact, I'm sure my cousins and I have plenty of stories where something just didn't add up, or it was some type of folklore, or something just didn't sit well with our souls in the woods. So you let me know in the comments, do you have a creepy Appalachian wood story? Have you been out in the middle of the woods, doesn't have to be Appalachia, and something just doesn't make sense or sound right? Should we have probably went in the first time when we heard the baby screaming? Sometimes there's things in the woods and there's things at night that just don't make sense, and really, they're probably not meant for us to go looking for anyways.
Yeah, something was definitely trying to get their attention, and I don't think it had good intentions behind it whatsoever. I mean, thankfully it couldn't get to them. Like she said, they were like elevated and there was no access from below. But I mean, that is pretty terrifying. Best scenario possible. Being elevated with no access, so you could still kind of hang out outside for a little bit, but after a while I would definitely go in. I'd be like, there is something out here trying to get my attention, and I need to be far, far away from this thing. Our next TikTok is by the user morgshauntings.
Myself and my husband had a very creepy experience in the Appalachian Mountains the other day, and I want to talk to you guys about it. Because the fact that my husband experienced something is like wild, because he rarely experiences anything, and he experienced this first. So it is nighttime. We are driving back home. We're pretty like in the middle of nowhere. I think we had just come from my parents' house, and they live like pretty far out. You have to drive through woods to get there. Like, we were pretty far away, just out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm driving. Obviously, I am looking straight ahead. I am watching for deer. I am alert. I am paying attention, as I always do at night driving around here. My husband does a little gasp, and I'm like, what? What happened? And he said, huh? Like, it's just being boozled. So I'm like, what happened? And he goes on to tell me that he saw something. He said, I thought it was a deer, which is never a good way to start a conversation when you live in Appalachia. But nevertheless, he says, I thought it was a deer, but it looked kind of weird, and then it turned into a mist and just kind of like floated away. He saw this on the side of the road. I would have seen that. It's weird that I didn't, because like I said, I'm paying attention, right? So we drive a little bit further. We're not talking about it anymore. We're just vibing, whatever. I drive very strange at night. Like, I drive very close to the steering wheel. I hold the steering wheel like this. Like, I am back off of the seat. Like, I am at the steering wheel, right? Something grabs my hair and just boom, like my head like that. Just, like, it was hard. No one else is in the car. Obviously, my husband didn't do it. And he's like, are you okay? And so I tell him, I'm like, something just pulled my hair. What is going on right now? So at that point, I'm like, okay, we shouldn't be talking about this at all. So we both just go silent. I'm 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, just driving. And then the smell hits the car of just straight up rotten egg, sulfur. It's awful. And the smell does not go away until we're out of the woods. Living in this area is not for the faint of heart. It's just not.
Yeah, so typically when you see something that's a deer, maybe a deer, potentially a deer, in the Appalachian Mountains, it could be a skinwalker. And I don't know, just the idea of driving around kind of in the middle of nowhere in the Appalachian Mountains, seeing a maybe deer, and then something yanking your hair back. I mean, that tells me that that probably wasn't a deer. That was probably something else, and it probably followed you a little bit. I really enjoyed the story because it was fascinating and creepy, but I absolutely hated the story because it was terrifying. And the fact that she waited for her partner to get home before she filmed the story time says a lot about how freaked out she is even after the fact. Our final TikTok of the video is with the user odessablaine.
Why you shouldn't FAFO in the Appalachians. A couple of nights ago, my daughter was taking a walk in the driveway like she does frequently at night. And then all of a sudden I heard her say, "Oh!" And then she booked it back inside. And as she came in the door, I met her at the door, asked her what was up. She said there was something in the neighbor's field. This field here, right across this little road of ours. And she wasn't sure what it was. So I went ahead and came out here. We've had a lot of coyotes around here lately, and if it was a little pack of yotes, I wanted them to move along, please. So I came out here to yell at them. That's usually enough to get them to scatter. I get to about right here. I have a headlamp on, and I can see green and yellow eyes, about 3 or 4 sets of them right here, okay? Low to the ground. So I'm thinking definitely coyotes, right? So I get right here, and I said, all right, go and get. And the things that were here, low to the ground, all of a sudden popped up to about right here. So they stood up a good maybe 6 feet. And then they looked at me for a minute and then dropped back down right at the ground and started kind of skittering toward me. Now, thankfully, these little creepy things didn't cross the road. They kind of got to the ditch there and they stopped and just watched me. So I was like, you know what? My bad. I'm in your backyard. I'm sorry. I'll see my way out. And I just backed back up all the way to the front door and I took my butt back in the house. Now, something to keep in mind is that I frequently walk at night in these woods by myself without a light or anything. So I don't normally think anything about walking at night, neither does my kid. Until a couple of days ago. So this is your friendly neighborhood reminder that the Appalachian Mountains are older than bones. And they've got a lot of creepy things that still remember when these mountains were new.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would walk around the middle of the woods by themselves without a flashlight. I mean, to each their own, you do you, but that's crazy. That's crazy. Just walking through the pitch black Appalachian woods by yourself. That seems like a recipe for disaster to me. I would be like flinching every time I heard a noise from the forest. I mean, I'm glad that this was kind of the lesson of like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this sort of a thing and not something worse. But that's crazy. I've never heard of anyone just like wandering around the woods in the dark without a flashlight by themselves. Crazy. But that is all I have for today's video, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the TikToks I showed you today. Feel free to tag me in any you come across that you want me to include in a future video. My username is at the @AbbeyStorymeyer. I've also included the usernames of all the creators I included in this video down below in the description. Also down below in the description is my Instagram and TikTok if you'd like to check those out while you're at it. And as mentioned in the beginning of the video, the GoFundMe for my friend whose house was flooded over 4th of July weekend is down below. Please donate it if you can. If you can't, please share. I really appreciate your support in advance. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I'll pop a couple of videos suggestions on the screen for you to watch next. Please click the subscribe button down below and turn on post notifications so you would never miss a video. I post Sundays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.